Chapter 790. Hearing the system announce famous Sword Dao Shui's victory, the audience couldn't help but boo. Damn, this was called a battle? The two of them stood there in a daze for a long time. Then, they took off their clothes, spat on each other, and even resorted to dirty tricks like lime powder. However, after 40 minutes, the two of them only managed to stab each other once. What the hell was this? Everyone had played games for half their lives, but they had never seen such a boring duel. When the players of Afterglow City heard the victor's name, they also knew the true identity of the so-called motley crew. However, Mingjian Daoshui's victory was truly disgusting. This made the players of Afterglow City unable to feel excited. In fact, they could not help but think that the people from a Quanjun sect really didn't care about time and place when they wanted to be despicable. Mingjian Daoshui was still fine. That brat was not a match for Gold Full Hall, and being able to draw was already his highest goal. Now that he had won, it was naturally beyond his expectations. No one cared how he had won. How is it? Amazing, right? Returning to his own side, famous Sword Dao Shui said proudly, "Amazing, amazing. Dao Shui is really smart. I knew you would win." The Chuanjin players gave him a thumbs up and sighed in admiration. These people were all despicable. Famous Sword Dao Shui had won so disgracefully. In the eyes of Chuanjin, he had become the synonym of wit. Golden Full Hall's side was more tragic. He wasn't weaker than his opponent, but he had been tricked by his opponent. Golden Full Hall, who had lost, felt extremely sullen. CK, don't stop me. I'm going to kill that kid. Golden Full Hall's face was red. He wanted to go to Chuanjin to fight famous Sword Dao Shui, but he was held back by his teammates. War is Peace said, "That's enough, old gold. A tactical victory is still a victory. This is just a duel. There are many more tricks. If you can't afford to lose, won't you jump off a building?" I feel so bad. Golden Full Hall lowered his head, feeling extremely wronged. Gold, don't feel bad. Look at me next. At that moment, a warrior with a crew-cut patted Golden Full Hall's shoulder. The flathead warrior was called Silver Rap. He was the second strongest player in the Raptor team. People called him Silver Falcon. He was a warrior, and because he was a damage dealer, he wasn't any weaker than Golden Jade Full Hall. Gold Jade Mansions turned around and looked at Silver wrapped up. "Old Silver, you can't lose." "Got it." Silver-clad man nodded lightly. At the same time, the system announced the start of the third round. Bao San and Silver Rap were teleported to the arena. Since the two of them were warriors, they were quite handsome. Coupled with their glowing top-grade equipment, the two of them appeared extraordinarily valiant. Compared to the previous match's wretched duo, the two of them were much more eye-catching. Don't tell me we're going to stand there for another 40 minutes. The audience on the stage was a little scared. If this happens again, I'll go offline and file a complaint. Damn it. I support you. Push. As if they could hear the anger of the audience, the two on the stage didn't waste any time. As soon as the countdown started, they immediately got into battle stances. Although Silver Rap and Bao San were both weapon warriors, this kid's style was completely different from Bao San's. Bao San had learned Kendo, so he was more technical. He was an agility warrior, and his movements were more agile. Silver Rap was different. He was the same as Golden Jade Full Hall, belonging to the classic Raptor team style. He walked the path of violence. Although he wasn't as agile as Bao San, his moves were extremely fierce. As soon as the match started, Silver Rap made the first move. He raised his hand and used charge, lowering his head and charging at Bao San. He really is an expert. Seeing Silver Rap's starting skill, Bao San secretly praised him. Warriors could learn Collapsing Mountain after level 30. Collapsing Mountain was a movement skill. Not only did it have high priority, but it also had a hard crowd control effect. It was usually used by warriors as a starting skill. However, real warrior experts, such as Bao San, never used this move as a starting skill. This was because Collapsing Mountain had a short period of time when it descended from the sky. Although this period of time was fleeting, if he encountered a real expert, he would easily be caught off guard and knocked into the air. Although warriors had good defense, the weakness of strength classes was that it was difficult to quick recover. Once knocked into the air by an expert, They were basically meat on the chopping block. Therefore, when one skill reached a certain level, the use of collapsing mountain was limited to movement and pursuit. Very few people would use collapsing mountain as a starting gesture. In fact, very few people would even use this skill to attack a standing enemy. Although charge was a beginner skill, and the knockback wasn't considered a very good crowd control effect, the skill's priority wasn't low. Moreover, it was a solid skill. More importantly, during the process of using this skill, as long as one paid attention to canceling the skill, one could use any other skill. Because of this, warrior players who used charge as a starting skill in the game, even if they weren't experts, were still steady characters. The specialty of a warrior was stability. To be able to display this specialty was already very outstanding. Seeing Silver Rap rush over, Bao San lightly jumped back. At the same time, he swung his sword with one hand, and a sword light slashed towards Silver Rap. Backward slash. Seeing this, Silver Rap was slightly surprised. He hurriedly canceled the skill and dodged Bao San's slash. Backward slash? Molly Mob, that warrior has some skill. The audience couldn't help but exclaim when they saw Bao San use this skill. Slash was a basic skill of a warrior. This wasn't something to be surprised about. However, when two warriors slashed at each other, they would first use slash and then jump back the moment the skill was released. This way, they would be able to attack their opponent while dodging their opponent's attack at the same time. It seemed simple, but it was actually quite difficult to execute. Players who didn't have enough reaction time would have a hard time grasping that timing. Therefore, it was known as a beginner's trick for experts. Bao San's backward slash was executed smoothly. It didn't seem deliberate at all. It was completely effortless. It truly surprised the audience and the other members of the Raptor team. No wonder he could fight his way into the top 100. He really did have some skill. Silver Rap's strength wasn't bad either. After canceling the skill and dodging Bao San's slash, Silver Rap didn't hesitate at all. Before Bao San landed, he gripped his greatsword with both hands and twisted his body. He activated Whirlwind Slash and turned towards Bao San in the air. Because Bao San had jumped, he was currently floating in the air. He could move freely. Just as this Whirlwind Slash was about to hit him, Bao San, who was in the air, stretched out his hand and stabbed his long sword into Silver Rap's forehead. Assassination. A beginner warrior skill didn't do much damage, but it had a very disgusting effect, which was to interrupt skills. Silver Rap's Whirlwind Slash came to an abrupt stop. Bao San landed on the ground and took a step forward. The long sword in his hand drew an arc. Chapter 791. Soul-Sucking Hand. At this moment, Silver Rap roared. His left hand suddenly expanded, and a huge black hand shadow tore through the sword draw's saber light, grabbing Bao San's throat. Bao San was like a little chick caught in Silver Rap's hand. Break! Silver Rap roared again. The black shadow exploded, and Bao 3 was thrown out. Then, the two-handed greatsword in Silver Rap's hand shone with a dazzling red light. Silver Rap leaped and smashed into Bao 3, who was in the air. Collapsing Mountain. Oh no, this is Collapsing Earth Slash. Seeing Silver Rap's skill, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. Collapsing Mountain, Earth-Shattering Slash, was a level 45 warrior skill. Although it looked similar to Collapsing Mountain dealt higher damage, had higher priority, and had a wider AoE. Moreover, after sending the target flying, the skill dealt continuous magic damage. It was a very overbearing skill. The effect of Soul-Sucking Hand had yet to disappear, and Silver Rap's Collapsing Earth Slash had already smashed into Bao 3's body. Bao 3 was smashed from the sky to the ground, and then sent flying. His health bar dropped to 20%, and it was still dropping. You've lost. Silver Rap coldly snorted and used the skill Assassinate, stabbing at Bao 3. Assassinate had a stun effect, so he used Assassinate in the air, and then Whirlwind Slash. This was a very shameless combo skill for warriors. To be able to use this skill against Bao 3, it seemed that Silver Rap no longer had any contempt for Bao 3. Clang! However, at this moment there was a clear sound. Bao 3 wasn't stunned by Assassinate, as Silver Rap had expected, but instead fell to the ground. He blocked it. Silver Rap was stunned and suddenly smashed down with his two swords using heavy strike. Bao 3 narrowed his eyes and rolled forward to Silver Rap's feet, leaving the range of Silver Rap's heavy strike. Seeing this, Silver Rap hurriedly canceled the skill and jumped back. Bao San had the super movement skill, triple slash, so he had never been afraid of anyone in a roaming battle. His figure flashed, following Silver Outfit like a shadow. He slashed at Silver Outfit's waist. Silver Outfit didn't retreat, but instead advanced, using colliding charge to ram into Bao San. Bao San once again flashed to Silver Outfit's back, stabbing him a second time. Silver, who had been struck twice in a row, finally panicked. He jumped up and wanted to use Collapsing Mountain to pull away from Bao 3. But just as Silver's suit was about to hit the ground, Bao San appeared again. This time, he appeared under Silver's suit. Bao San held his sword with both hands and used an upward slash. Pooh! Bao San's sword struck Silver-Wrapped Man's chin, and Silver-Wrapped Man was immediately lifted into the air. Breaking Army Rising Dragon slash. Bao San's eyes narrowed, and the long sword in his hand burst forth with light. At the same time, he transformed into a fire dragon, shuttling back and forth. Sword Chi slashed at Silver Rap's body, and Silver Rap didn't even have the chance to land. He took Bao San's set of big moves head-on and was directly turned into ashes. Currently, Bao San's HP was less than 10%. F***CK. Fierce. He can even counterattack like this? Seeing Bao San's counterattack, the audience was stunned for a full 3 seconds. Then, they exploded into a thunderous roar. The skills of a warrior were cool to begin with. Now that the two of them were exchanging blows with experts, the technique and visual quality of the battle were incomparable to that of an ordinary battle. Moreover, everyone had just experienced a boring battle. This exchange between Bao San and Silver Rap was truly satisfying for everyone. At this time, not only the players from Yuhui-Chung, but even the players from City of War God couldn't help but cheer for Bao San. In the two battles just now, one of Chuanjin was instantly killed with full HP, and the other shamelessly played dirty. So, everyone thought that Chuanjin was just a team that had good luck. Bao San's appearance completely changed everyone's view of him. Not to mention the two's use of warrior skills and judgment of timing. Just the counterattack with only a low HP was enough to prove Bao San's real ability. Mother of Asterisker, this is what you call a real battle. What the hell was that in the last battle? That's right. They're both players from two different teams, but the difference in their character is too big. While everyone was amazed at how exciting this battle was, they did not forget to look down on famous sword Dao Shui from the last battle. Especially the flag bearer of the Raptor team, Xiao Fei. At this time, he was dumbfounded. There's actually such an expert in that group. This should be their #1 expert, right? I'm not sure. War is Peace said. But I don't think this is their true strength. After all, the legendary Iron Ox hasn't appeared yet. Stop joking. That warrior is already so strong. Is this not their true strength? If they really had this kind of ability, would they even need to participate in the qualifiers? That Iron Ox is at most on the same level as Bao San. Xiao Fei pouted. Sigh. War is Peace side. No matter what level they are, even gold and silver have lost. If they fight on this map, the later battles will be a little difficult. In the 4th round, the Raptor team's assassin, Young Deer bumping against Yin Lao Air. Yin Lao Air had the divine weapon in his hand. Young Deer bumping against famous sword Dao Shui had wanted to hide like a turtle and launch a sneak attack, but Yin Lao Air took out a bag of lime powder and revealed his true form. Then, he won the battle after a round of abuse. In the 5th round, North Sea Fish has Fish bumping against the Raptor team's assassin, Sky burrowing through the ground, who is also the flag bearer, Xiao Fei. Once on stage, North Sea Fish's fishes fly through a bag of lime powder without a word, and Sky burrowing through the ground was revealed. An assassin without stealth was even weaker than a grandmaster of combat. Moreover, the two of them were old acquaintances. Sky burrowing through the ground knew of North Sea Fish as fishes fly through. Seeing that he was exposed, he threw the white flag and surrendered. It couldn't be helped. The arena was too small. A bag of lime powder could be thrown across a quarter of the arena. If it was a bigger map, Chuanjin probably wouldn't be able to do anything even if he carried the flower. Lime powder again. Chuanjin used lime powder several times in a row and immediately attracted the attention of the audience. They were all wondering how this thing could have such a miraculous effect. Seeing that everyone was so interested, Mu Zixian introduced, "This is developing powder, also known as lime powder. It's a specialty of Chuanjin. Not only can it blind, but it can also be used for anti-stealth. Male players can use it for combat, and female players can use it for self-defense. It's really a household item." She didn't forget to add that it would be sold exclusively by Yu Huiqing's cow sister-in-law's general store. She was such a good girl. She didn't forget to advertise. In the first duel, Chuanjin won the match with a 4-1 win and 13 points. Next was the wheel race. The wheel race was randomly selected by the system. This was less controllable. If the first player was Wang Yu, he could easily take on 10 players. But if the first player was a support class like Wu Ji, it was basically equivalent to giving away points. Chapter 792. Motley Crowd. Wu Ji, Mingdu, Chun Xiang, Mingji and Dao Xue to place one's pride. Raptor Team. Full firepower, soar, wind and clouds, rain and dew, invincible iron fist. TSK. Look at their names, so proper. Wang Yu couldn't help but exclaim when he saw the names of the Raptor Team on the screen. Putting aside the strength of the Raptor Team, the names of the players were all very meticulous. Gold, silver, copper, iron, wind, fire, thunder, and so on. On Chuanjin's side, Wu Ji was a bit Chinibyu. Mingdu was confused, Chun Xiang. With the word Xiang in his name, one could tell he was a person. The others didn't care about Wang Yu's unique way of looking at things, instead rubbing their chins and frowning. At this time, the players for both sides had been confirmed. Chuanjin's side had a cleric, magician, warlock, assassin, and fighter. On the other side, the Raptor Team had a sorcerer, assassin, archer, cleric, and fighter. Obviously, the random selection of players was very disadvantageous to Chuanjin. Wu Ji was a non-combat class. He was more than enough to bully normal players, but against experts, it was a bit difficult. Mingji and Dao Xue's strength couldn't keep up in this level of competition. Although Mingdu, Chun Xiang, and the others had a chance of winning, the choice of the map wasn't in Chuanjin's hands. This way, the map was biased toward the Raptor Team, especially since the Raptor Team's third player was an archer, the class with the longest range. If they chose a map that was advantageous to them, they could use tactics to win. "Our chances of winning this match aren't high," Chun Xiang said, smacking his lips. Wu Ji said calmly, "That's to be expected. Everyone, do your best. We still have a guarantee for the next match. It doesn't matter even if we lose all 15 points in this match. Don't feel too much pressure. Wu Ji, your thinking is very dangerous." To place one's pride, and Mingji and Dao Xue curl their lips. Wu Ji said, "What else can I do? If I don't say so, am I supposed to give you trash a military order?" "That's right. Everyone, don't feel too pressured. Do your best, do your best." Once they heard the words military pledge, the two of them quickly changed their tune. At the same time, War is Peace was also lecturing his subordinates. "We've already lost the last match. If we lose this one, we won't be able to recover. Everyone, please give it your all." "Yes, got it," the Raptor players shouted in unison. These fellows had tasted defeat for the first time, and they had lost in a rather sullen manner. At this moment, they were all in a fit of rage, and their fighting spirits were high. "I'm worried about you guys," War is Peace said worriedly. Hearing what their boss said, the players of the Raptor battle team were all confused. Why were they still worried when they were so confident? War is Peace said, "Remember, our goal is to win the competition, not to kill the enemy. Everyone, don't be so bloodthirsty as to fight the enemy head-on. Otherwise, we'll still lose this round. How can we win if we don't kill our opponent?" Everyone was baffled. "Simple." War is Peace laughed. "Remember how old Jean lost? Let's do this and this." "Wow, seventh bro, you're so shameless." After War is Peace said his idea, Everyone looked at him with disdain. War is Peace said, "What do you know? This is called a strategy. Remember it. No one wants to show off, got it?" Got it. Although everyone looked down on War is Peace's strategy, they were still very impressed in their hearts. In the end, War is Peace patted Windswept Cloud's shoulder. "Little Wind, you're the main force this time. Don't drop the ball, got it?" "Yes, I got it." Windswept Cloud nodded with force. The 5-minute break ended quickly. The players of the Raptor Battle team went all out and started choosing their map. Following War is Peace's strategy, they went all out and chose dense forest terrain. Seeing this map, Wuji's heart skipped a beat. As expected, the Raptor Battle team was not easy to deal with. Dense forest terrain, as the name suggested, was a forest terrain. This type of map had high ambushes and was suitable for guerrilla warfare. It was very advantageous for assassins and archers. Among the 10 people on both sides, only Ming Jiandaoxue was an assassin on Xuanzhen's side. Moreover, Ming Jiandaoxue's strength was relatively average. However, the other side not only had assassins, but also archers. It was obvious that the players on Xuanzhen's side were living targets. If the archers on the other side started kiting, the Xuanzhen players, who did not even have many movement skills, would be helpless. After All Out chose their map, the players on both sides were transported to the battlefield. For the sake of fairness, during the wheel battle, other than the 2 people fighting, the other players who were chosen would be transported to the outer battlefield as substitutes. The first to go up was Wuji and All Out. Just like the individual challenge, the wheel battle also lasted 40 minutes. If no one died after the time was up, the winner would be determined by the percentage of HP lost in a single round. Although the dense forest terrain was not small, the teleportation points of both sides were fixed. They were less than 20 meters apart and could see each other. Otherwise, with such a large map, they would not be able to do anything but search for people in the 40 minutes. All Out was a standard Ice Mage expert. The specialty of Ice Mages was their continuous damage output and control. In War is Peace, combat classes like Assassins and Mages did not fight their enemies head-on. As for Wuji, All Out was not cowardly to the point of not daring to face a cleric head-on. The moment the timer started, All Out charged at Wuji. As he ran, he threw an ice spear at Wuji. Crap, All Out can actually cast while moving. In the spectator stands, the battle between the two could be clearly seen. When they saw All Out shooting out ice spears while moving, they could not help but cry out in surprise. It was common knowledge that when a mage was casting, they would be interrupted if they moved. All Out was neither a fast chanting speed wind spell nor a fast casting speed thunder spell. Casting while moving completely defied common sense. When Wuji saw this scene, he could not help but be startled for a moment. An expert was an expert. He could get all kinds of strange skills. Since he could cast while moving, All Out was naturally a kiting style. His attribute points were added to agility. Although the damage of a single spell was not very strong, once he was stuck, it would be difficult to break free. In the blink of an eye, All Out rushed not far away from Wuji. With a wave of his hand, an ice spear was thrown at Wuji. Wuji turned around and hid behind a tree. Crack! All Out's ice spear hit the tree and the trunk instantly froze. Without waiting for Wuji to regain his composure, he ran a few steps to the side, found his target, and threw an ice spear at him. Wuji dodged again. Crack! The second ice spear hit the ground, and a layer of frost formed on the ground. Chapter 793. As the first offensive skill of a priest, Holy Light was known for its low attack power. Because of the light effect of holy magic, Holy Light was especially conspicuous in the dark forest. It couldn't be used for a sneak attack. Seeing Wuji throw Holy Light, Full Fire raised his staff and released a fireball. The huge fireball immediately engulfed the Holy Light. At this moment, Wuji suddenly jumped out from behind a tree and locked on a Full Fire, releasing Holy Flame. Holy Flame was a directional skill. It couldn't be dodged. Full Fire was immediately muted. Mages were the class that relied the most on skills. A muted mage was a target that couldn't fight back. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, Full Fire turned around and ran into the depths of the forest. As expected of a mage with agility, he ran like a rabbit. In the blink of an eye, he had left Wuji behind. Just as Firepower was about to heave a sigh of relief, his eyes suddenly lit up. Firepower hurriedly raised his head, only to see Wuji hovering directly above him. Wuji extended his hand, grabbed a bolt of lightning, and threw it down towards him. Light of Punishment, a priest's only damage output skill. It could deal powerful single-target damage to the opponent. Of course, this was only the skill's introduction. For damage output classes, Light of Punishment's damage was pitifully low. Full Fire couldn't dodge in time and was hit by Wuji's Light of Punishment. His HP dropped by 1/5. A mage that was a fragile class only took 1/5 of their HP. The damage was so low that it made people's hair stand on end. At the same time, Full Fire's mute was activated. Full Fire looked at his HP and smiled disdainfully. He waved his staff, and a blizzard appeared above Wuji's head. In the blink of an eye, Wuji chanted, and a huge cross transformed into a holy light that protected Wuji. Wuji floated down from the sky unscathed. At this time, Full Fire's next spell was ready. As soon as Wuji landed, Full Fire tapped his staff on the ground. The ground turned into ice, and Wuji was slowed. With a hearty laugh, he cast the level 45 Ice Magician's ultimate skill, Polar Ice Double Dragon Burst. 2 ice dragons were summoned from the staff, roaring as they engulfed Wuji. Wuji was slowed by Ice Mirror. It was impossible for him to dodge the AoE skill, Polar Double Dragon Burst. Just when Full Fire thought that Wuji was about to be killed by him and let his guard down, Wuji's HP bar was suddenly emptied by the Ice Dragon. An almost invisible light slowly flew out from Wuji's body, passing through the Ice Dragon and shooting towards Full Fire. Wuji, whose HP was low, was turned into a streak of white light by Ice Dragon and sent out of the arena. Full Firepower was so pleased with himself that he didn't notice Wuji's previous actions. Now that Wuji had disappeared, he didn't even have the slightest bit of defense in his heart. All he saw was the weak light that Wuji had summoned slowly land on Full Firepower's body. The next moment, Full Fire also turned into a white light and disappeared from the arena. What's going on? Full Fire wanted to strike a victory pose, but the scene in front of him changed. The trees around him suddenly became his teammates, and he was immediately stunned. You idiot, that cleric self-destructed. War is Peace covered his face helplessly when he saw Full Fire's dumbfounded expression. The move that Wuji had just used was a level 40 cleric skill called Reckoning. It reduced one's HP to 1, ignoring the target's defense in exchange for the same amount of HP. It was a very cheap skill, so it was commonly known as self-destruct. F***CK. When did that be *TCH self-destruct? Why didn't I know about it? Full Fire said gloomily. Although the skill looked very shameless, it had a lot of limitations. First of all, it couldn't be used against a class with more HP than the user. Second, this skill wasn't a directional skill, and its trajectory was very slow, making it easier to dodge. Therefore, unless the cleric was forcefully controlled and used the skill at close range, it was very easy to be discovered. However, Wuji didn't forcefully control the skill, nor did he stick close to the cleric. Full Fire was confused when he used the skill. War is Peace said, he self-destructed at the same time you used your ultimate skill. It seems that the punk let your skill hit him on purpose. From the limitations of Reckoning, it could be seen that without forcefully controlling the skill, even an expert like Wuji would have a hard time hitting Full Fire. However, clerics weren't a damage output class, and they only had one skill to defeat a mage. From this, it could be seen that Wuji intentionally got hit by the skill, drew Full Fire to use his ultimate skill, and then took advantage of the moment when Full Fire let down his guard. It was a well-designed trap. From the moment Wuji used the first skill, Full Fire had been led into the trap step by Wuji, be it in terms of physical or psychological. On purpose. Full Fire thought back to the scene just now, and a chill ran down his spine. This guy, Full Fire threw a punch, and couldn't help but glance at Xuanjin, only to see Wuji looking back at him with a playful smile. The first round ended with the two dying together. In the second round, Mingdu and Burrowing Earthsoar were teleported into the arena at the same time. Burrowing Earthsoar was also an incredible expert, but he was killed by Biming Yoyu in 2 or 3 moves because of the terrain and the lime powder. The current dense forest terrain was like a fish in water for Burrowing Earthsoar. After teleporting into the arena, Burrowing Earthsoar decisively entered stealth and became a hidden party. Mingdu was very cunning. Seeing Burrowing Earthsoar disappear, Mingdu waved his staff and flew up a tree. He also became a hidden party, or his piece said that he had to be careful. So, Burrowing Earthsoar watched Mingdu fly up into the sky, feeling very sullen. Burrowing Earthsoar couldn't teleport, and if he wanted to climb up the tree, he would expose himself. Climbing a tree within a mage's attack range was purely looking for excitement. Burrowing Earthsoar didn't know what Mingdu was doing and anxiously circled around the tree, not knowing what to do. Damn it, is he trying to stall for time again? Seeing that the two people in the arena had no intention of fighting at all, the audience was furious. It was one thing for someone to stall for time in the first round, but there was also someone in the second round. Why do they always meet such people in the second round? No matter how bad Mingjian Daoxue and Full of Golden Jade were, they could at least let the audience see the two of them show off their shamelessness, and they could just treat it as a comedy show. After Mingdu climbed up the tree, he closed his eyes and rested, looking like he was about to take a 40-minute nap. How could the audience not be angry? The audience's curses were so loud that the two people in the arena couldn't hear them. Even if they did, with Mingdu's personality, he would have the right to sing his own praises. Chapter 794. In the first round, Wuji and Firepower killed each other. Each team got 2 points. In the second round, the two of them stared blankly at each other and both got 0 points. The points competition had been a tradition for decades. Both of these situations had happened before, but this was the first time that these two situations had happened at the same time in a match. The motley crowd and the Raptor Battle team had already been silently blacklisted by all the spectating players. Huh? It's over already? Mingdu, who had been teleported out of the arena, asked. Everyone looked at the audience on the arena who couldn't wait to throw shit at Mingdu and said with disdain, "If you King slept till night, we'd be drowned in the sea of people's war today." Mingdu pointed his middle finger at the angry audience on the stage and laughed shamelessly. Hee, they don't know *T. This is called strategy. Otherwise, we'll subdue the enemy with our weapons, you know? After the two of Mingdu left the battlefield, Chun Xiang and Windswept Cloud were teleported to the battlefield at the same time. These two probably didn't expect the first 2 rounds to be a draw. Looking at the two on the battlefield, Wuji frowned and said, "The other side has learned their lesson. They know not to face us head-on. I'm afraid this round won't be easy for Brother Chun." Compared to Whirling Cloud, Chun Xiang was a warlock. His attack range wasn't high enough, and his movement speed wasn't high enough. As a cloth armor class, his HP wasn't much higher than Whirling Cloud's, not to mention his damage. Whether it was burst damage or sustained damage, warlocks were far inferior to archers. Not to mention that his attributes were suppressed in all aspects. The dense forest terrain was even more disadvantageous for Chun Xiang, who didn't have any directional skills. This was because directional skills required a relatively high field of vision. If Windswept Cloud wanted a kite, Chun Xiang would definitely be at his wit's end. As expected, Windswept Cloud personality was very stable, and he had been instilled with the mentality of just win, don't kill. As soon as the two entered the battlefield and met Chun Xiang, Windswept Cloud immediately turned around and distanced himself from Chun Xiang. When an archer learned shooting mastery at level 40, their shooting range would increase to 20 meters. Whirlwind was also a professional archer expert, so naturally, he would have a lot of equipment and skills that increased his shooting range. He only stopped when he was 30 meters away from Chun Xiang. Then, he turned behind a tree and found a shooting position. Soaring Spring's basic range was only 8 meters, and it only increased to 12 meters after reaching level 40. Compared to remnant wind and cloud, this range was like heaven and earth. Not to mention, Chun Xiang did not even have a movement skill. At this moment, he had become a sitting duck for remnant storm. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Along with the sound of breaking air, Windstorm Cloud Remnant shot out 3 arrows in a row, forming a front and back triangular formation. Chun Xiang hurriedly bent down, and the 3 arrows brushed past his back and shot into the tree behind him. When Chun Xiang saw this, he quickly moved behind the tree. Facing an archer with a long shooting range, Chun Xiang did not have the ability to advance. The only thing he could do now was to dodge. Fortunately, there were many trees in this dense forest, and there were many obstacles. Windswept Cloud Remnant's arrows were not so easy to hit. Standing behind the tree, Chun Xiang did not look as bad as he imagined. Seeing that Chun Xiang could only take a beating on the battlefield, Mingdu anxiously shouted, "Why didn't Cheap Spring fly over? Why didn't he summon his underlings?" Wuji said, "Because of the class suppression, Brother Chun knows that he can't win by force, so there's no need to waste his skills now." Can't win? Why can't he win? That kid can't hit him either, right? Mingdu was puzzled. Hee hee. Wuji smiled slightly and said, "You ignored the problem of vision." Vision? When Mingdu heard this, he hurriedly turned his gaze to the battlefield. He saw that after Whirlwind made a few false shots, he began to adjust his shooting angle. Seeing this scene, Mingdu suddenly reacted. In this dim map, not to mention Chun Xiang hiding behind the tree, even if the two of them were face to face, Chun Xiang would not be able to figure out Whirlwind's position. However, Stormcloud Destroyer was different. As an archer, his vision was far better than other professions. Stormcloud Destroyer could clearly see Chun Xiang's current position. As long as Chun Xiang made any movements, Stormcloud Destroyer would be able to react in time. As for now, as long as Whirlwind adjusted his shooting angle, it was only a matter of time before he hit Chun Xiang. Hee hee, the warlock on the opposite side has no power to fight back. Little Wind seems to be winning. Flying Sky and Earth saw that Whirlwind began to adjust his shooting angle, but Chun Xiang could only hide behind the tree like a turtle. He could not help but be pleasantly surprised. The other members of the Raptor Battle team also showed joy on their faces. In the third round, they could finally win for the first time. The audience on the stage was even more gratified. Although the battle between these two people was still boring, it was better than the 2 people who slept on the battlefield in the previous round. At least they did not have to wait for 40 minutes. However, the situation was not as simple as everyone thought. A crossbow was not a firearm. At a distance of 30 meters, the trajectory of the arrow could not be ignored. The larger the radius, the larger the circumference. At this time, Whirlwind adjusted his angle with the tree where Chun Xiang was hiding as the center. Naturally, the distance he ran was much longer than Chun Xiang. In order to prevent Chun Xiang from moving back and forth while he was adjusting the angle of his shots, Windstorm Remnant had been feigning his shots, attempting to give Chun Xiang the false impression that he was sincere enough to split metal and stone and wanted to shoot through the tree. But Whirlwind's angle changed half a circle from left to right, and he shot dozens of arrows around the tree, shooting in a semicircle. So many arrows, but none of them hit the target. Whirlwind was puzzled. Logically, with so many angles adjusted, and Chun Xiang had no vision, he should not be able to dodge. Could be. Whirlwind thought of this and suddenly shook his head. He muttered to himself, "Impossible. How can there be such a person?" At the same time, the audience outside the arena was already in an uproar. Inside the arena, Whirlwind could not see Chun Xiang's movements behind the tree, but the players outside the arena could see it clearly. Chun Xiang held his staff in his right hand and a book in his left. He leaned against a tree and closed his eyes. The angle of the whirling cloud remnant seemed to be very clear. Every time the whirling cloud remnant shot an arrow, Chun Xiang would unhurriedly move his position. He would always be able to hide in the blind spot of the whirling cloud remnant before the arrow hit. Does that warlock have a cheat code? How can he dodge it every time? I don't know. This guy should be able to determine the target of the arrow. Determine the target shop? Nonsense. He didn't even look at the arrow. How can he determine the direction? As long as the arrow was in his field of vision, it was not difficult to determine the target of the arrow from such a long distance. But Chun Xiang's back was against the tree, and his eyes were closed. After all, Whirlwind was in Chun Xiang's field of vision. With Chun Xiang's movement speed, using his eyes to determine the target of the arrow was undoubtedly courting death. Could it be the legendary ability to determine location by listening to the wind? Chapter 795. Determining location by listening to the wind was a very high-end technique in games, especially in 3D online games. Everyone lost their omniscient view, and to know the opponent's position, they had to judge by the sound. It was said that in the earliest shooting games, CS, there were experts who could determine the distance of the opponent from the sound of their footsteps and determine the opponent's weapon from the sound of their gun swapping. This talent was basically similar to cheating. However, that was only a legend. In the true sense, determining location by listening to the wind had to be done within a certain distance. Windswept Cloud Remnant was a full 30 meters away from Chun Xiang. At this distance, even Wang Yu could not determine location by listening to the wind, unless he heard the sound of an arrow piercing through the air. However, warlocks were not agile professions. With Chun Xiang's movement speed, he would be dead by the time he saw the arrow, let alone dodging the sound of the arrow piercing through the air. That was absolutely impossible. Windswept Cloud Remnant was a genuine expert, and his knowledge was extraordinary. Hence, at the start, he had also thought that Chun Xiang could determine location by listening to the wind. However, considering the distance between them, Windswept Cloud Remnant immediately discarded this absurd thought. Determine location by listening to the wind. Hearing this, the members of the Raptor team all revealed expressions of shock. Determine location by listening to the wind at a distance of 30 meters? What was the difference between this and cheating? Thinking up to this point, everyone looked at Chun Xiang as if they were looking at a monster. Even the people of Xuanzhen were dumbfounded. What an amazing ability to determine location by listening to the wind. I practiced martial arts for so many years, but I definitely can't do it. This time, Wang Yu was really shocked by Chun Xiang. All along, in Wang Yu's eyes, other than his outstanding calculation ability, Chun Xiang was just a wretched uncle. Unexpectedly, the ability he displayed now was something that even a martial arts expert like him had to admit that he was inferior to. A distance of 30 meters. How could a normal person have such hearing ability? Haha, old cow, you overestimate Brother Chun. This is not determining location by listening to the wind. Wuji laughed and said, "Didn't you see Brother Chun leaning against the tree? He's calculating the shooting angle." Calculating the angle? Hearing this, Wang Yu was even more incredulous. "That's right," Wuji said. He was leaning against the tree to listen to the impact of the arrow. Chun Xiang was a civil engineer in real life, and it was his professional instinct to determine the point of impact from the sound of impact. As a master of mental calculation, it was easy for him to calculate the movement speed and direction of tornado cloud from the point of impact and the frequency of impact of the arrows. At this time, the arrow shot by Wind Cloud Destroyer was like a bat's ultrasonic wave. Wind Cloud Destroyer's so-called feint to conceal his goal had undoubtedly clearly told Chun Xiang his position and the next shooting point. What was superfluous? Wind Cloud Destroyer was a classic example. Wuji and Chun Xiang had been friends for a long time. He was very familiar with Chun Xiang. Others might not be able to tell, but how could Wuji not see it? Of course, even so, Chun Xiang's terrifying computing ability still left everyone speechless. As expected of Brother Chun, "You are indeed amazing," Mingdu praised sincerely. Cheap Spring had also become Brother Chun. Of course, Wuji said, "Brother Chun usually doesn't use a calculator. He thinks that calculators are too slow, and this kind of simple calculation is child's play." What was the thing that Chun Xiang always said? It was to learn mathematics, physics, and chemistry, and not be afraid to travel the world. Wind Cloud Destroyer did not realize that playing a game required so much knowledge, and he did not believe that Chun Xiang had the ability to determine the position of a target by listening to the wind from 30 meters away. Therefore, Wind Cloud Destroyer completely blamed the shooting distance for not being able to hit Chun Xiang. Because the shooting distance was long, the trajectory time was long, and the target was easier to dodge. This was common sense. If I shoot at close range, he definitely won't be able to dodge. Wind Cloud Destroyer muttered to himself. He stopped shooting and began to move forward. At this time, the corner of Chun Xiang's mouth curled up. He took the bait. Wind Cloud Destroyer thought to himself, mages don't have range bonuses. After level 40, it only increases by 50%. The maximum range is 12 meters. I'm 20 meters away from him, but he still can't hit me. Thinking of this, Wind Cloud Destroyer calculated the distance as he moved forward step by step. When he was 20 meters away from Chun Xiang's hiding place, he saw Chun Xiang walk out from behind a tree. Courting death. Wind Cloud Destroyer snorted coldly. He drew his bow, aimed at Chun Xiang, and used the archer's level 40 skill, heart-piercing arrow. The arrow was like a meteor, shooting toward Chun Xiang. Wind Cloud Destroyer secretly clenched his fist. If this arrow hit, no matter how Chun Xiang dodged, it would not matter. As long as the arrow caused damage and dragged out the time, Wind Cloud Destroyer would win. But just as Wind Cloud Destroyer's arrow was about to hit, Chun Xiang suddenly turned into a cloud of black mist. Wind Cloud Destroyer's arrow passed through Chun Xiang and hit a tree. Over there, Chun Xiang, who had turned into mist, floated up. When he saw the arrow, he instantly determined the direction of Wind Cloud Destroyer. Wind Cloud Destroyer shot a few arrows at Chun Xiang. Seeing that his attacks were ineffective, he was shocked. Just as he turned around to run, his body suddenly sank. Green appeared from head to toe, and it was as if his feet were stuck in mud. He could not run at all. Ow, how is this possible? Wind Cloud Destroyer was shocked. Chun Xiang was clearly 20 meters away from him. How could he poison himself? When Wind Cloud Destroyer looked back in horror, he was almost scared out of his wits. He saw a monster with a human face and a snake's body appear behind him. It was this monster that had attacked Wind Cloud Destroyer. This monster was Chun Xiang's pet, Angela. It was true that Chun Xiang's range was only 12 meters, but as a magic pet, Angela's range was also 12 meters. Wind Cloud Destroyer's position was just within Chun Xiang's attack range. Before Wind Cloud Destroyer could recover from his shock, Chun Xiang ordered Angela to transform. Angela instantly turned into a giant python and quickly rolled toward Wind Cloud Destroyer. Wind Cloud Destroyer was poisoned, and his movement speed decreased by 70%. It was impossible for him to run, so he hurriedly drew his bow and shot. Angela was a boss. Although it was weakened and its stats were not as good as before, it still would not die so easily. Angela rushed to the front of the Tornado Cloud Remnant while withstanding the shots of the Tornado Cloud Remnant. His huge body wrapped around the Tornado Cloud Remnant tightly. Wind Cloud Destroyer, who was entangled, could not move other than his mouth. At that time, Chun Xiang had calmly arrived and threw skills at Wind Cloud Destroyer. The archer did not have much HP. Under the ravages of Chun Xiang's poison, Wind Cloud Destroyer painfully turned into a ball of white light, while Chun Xiang was still full HP. Full HP kill. Seeing this scene, everyone's jaws dropped. Whether it was in terms of class or map, Wind Cloud Destroyer suppressed Chun Xiang in all aspects, but the final result was so unbelievable. Chapter 796. Ow, how is this possible? The members of the Raptor team were all dumbfounded when they saw this result. Even War is Peace didn't expect this outcome. The battle plan was War is Peace. It was based on the classes of both sides. No one could compare to War is Peace. Understanding the difference between the two classes, if Wind Swirl Cloud could make good use of the terrain, let alone defeating Spring Soar, who posed the least threat, it might even be possible for him to 1v5. But this match was so inconceivable. A class that didn't specialize in agility had dodged all the attacks from the class with the highest agility. This was something that no one had expected. Little Foam, you must have been careless, right? Fly still couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. The moment Wind is Peace came out, Fly rushed up to question him. The Raptor battle team's strength was definitely one of the best in the city of Wargod. Even large guilds would not rashly provoke them. As one of the 12 Raptors, Remnant's strength could not be doubted. However, Remnant had lost so miserably even though his side had the complete advantage. He refused to believe that Remnant could fly. Feng Wan Yun said dejectedly. At first, I really didn't think much of him, but later on, I definitely put in 120% of my effort. That guy was too strong. I had a feeling of powerlessness the entire time. Too strong. Hearing Wind is Peace's words, Fly is Peace was slightly stunned. That's right, it's not that little Feng is too weak, but that Chun Xiang guy is too strong. War is Peace said, let's not talk about this guy's ability to locate by listening to the wind, but in terms of controlling the field, this guy's every move seemed to have been carefully calculated. He was completely in control, and even the rhythm of the battle was accurate to within 0.1 seconds. There aren't many pro players who are this strong. At this point, War is Peace turned to look at Wuji not far away and said, what's more frightening is that in Xuanzhen, other than this Chun Xiang, the guy called Wuji isn't any weaker than him. It's not hard to understand why a small guild can have 2 people like that. They can suppress Blood Alliance with just a dozen or so people. If it was me, I wouldn't provoke this kind of person. No wonder Little Fish was willing to join their team. 7th Brother. Hearing that War was Peace, Fei Tian was at a loss for words. In the arena, Chun Xiang had already started his 4th match. Chun Xiang constantly revealed his wretched nature. When the 3rd match ended, he hid near his opponent's spawn point and calculated time. When the 4th match began, he immediately threw out a dark barrier. Team Raptor's 4th player, Rain and Dew, was a cleric. His one-on-one combat ability was far inferior to Chun Xiang's. Chun Xiang was a priest-hidden class, great sage. He knew everything that Equal Rain and Dew knew, and he also knew everything that Equal Rain and Dew didn't know. At this time, he made the first move and gained the upper hand. As soon as Equal Rain and Dew entered the battlefield, he was controlled by Chun Xiang from behind, following which Chun Xiang unleashed a flurry of skills, controlling and attacking at the same time. Even the Rain and Dew were unable to touch Chun Xiang. Before Chun Xiang could even see what he looked like, he had been turned into a white light. Another full HP kill. This time, everyone wasn't as shocked as before. After all, it was widely acknowledged that priests had low combat power. The 5th round, the Grandmaster of Combat's invincible Iron Fist Grandmasters of Combat had always been known to be trash, and Warlocks were a class that countered Grandmasters of Combat. The result was obvious. Chun Xiang repeated what he had done, controlling first and then attacking, not giving Invincible Iron Fist any chance. Invincible Iron Fist was knocked off the stage in less than half a minute. Following the system's announcement, the audience outside the arena almost went wild. 1 versus 3 at full HP. This kind of score usually happened in a one-sided match. Even in a one-sided match, it was extremely difficult to kill 3 people at full HP. But who was Xuanzhen's opponent? Team Raptor. This was one of the top teams in the city of Wargod, and it was done in an away game with a disadvantage in their class. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, almost no one would believe what they were seeing. Although everyone had wasted a lot of time watching 2 of the most boring matches in history, being able to see the last 3 matches made the trip worthwhile. Next was the 3rd team match. The Motley Crew won the 2nd match 13-2. The score was already over 25 points. According to the rules, the winner was already decided. The reason why there was a 3rd match wasn't just to make Team Raptor lose so badly, but because there was a revival match later on. The eliminated team with the highest score would be able to participate in the revival match. Of course, it was up to Team Raptor to decide whether or not to participate in the 3rd match. When the system asked if War is Peace wanted to proceed to the 3rd match, War is Peace decisively chose to give up. There was no other reason. Team matches were competitions that tested a player's tactics and overall strength the most. In the first 2 matches, Xuanzhen had won as the underdog. Not only did they surpass Team Raptor in terms of individual strength, But their tactics were also an eye-opener for war is peace. With Wuji and Chun Xiang, these two terrifying existences, Team Raptor had completely lost their will to fight. Moreover, so what if they won the revival match? In the end, they still had to face these guys. Rather than embarrassing themselves to the end, it was better to know when to retreat. In the first round of preliminaries, Chuanjin easily won. Team Raptor's strength was already at the top among the grassroots players. Although they lost to Chuanjin, they were still much better than the average team. Following that, Chuanjin's battles could be said to be easy and simple. They won 3 rounds in a row and successfully advanced to the quarterfinals. Chuanjin's team also left a deep impression on all the players present. Being able to advance in the first round, Chuanjin was overjoyed. They bragged about how brave they were in the guild channel. Only Wang Yu's face was full of resentment, and he didn't say a word. "Nyogu, how many rounds did you win?" Chopper 345 asked curiously when he saw Wang Yu not saying a word. Wang Yu said angrily, "Wuji, that be asterisk T6, he didn't let me go up." Because they had won 2 rounds in all 3 rounds, whether it was the duels or the wheel race. Wang Yu didn't have a chance to go up. This made this battle maniac depressed. Chopper 345 paused and said regretfully, "What a pity. If Nyogu went up, he would definitely be better." Of course, Wang Yu first shamelessly praised himself. Then he clenched his fist and threatened Wuji, "Damn, if you don't let me go up tomorrow, I'll kill all of you." Wuji said bitterly, "Then we're dead. Is it so hard for you to let me go up once?" Wang Yu broke down. Because the next 3 days are Group B, C, D, and D, and the quarterfinals are in 3 days, Wuji said. "Damn." Wang Yu clenched his fist. "Then you must let me go up next time." Chapter 797. It could be said that Wuji and the others had never liked to play in competitions all these years. It was indeed a waste of time. The upper limit of a match was 40 minutes. There were 5 rounds in a match and 11 rounds in a round. Teams with a fast tempo would need close to an hour to determine a winner. If a team with a slow tempo encountered a shameless person like Mingdu, they would need tens of minutes in a match. It was only the first round of the preliminaries, and Quan Jun had been in the arena for more than 10 hours, starting from 8 in the morning. If it wasn't for the support of the big guilds, no one would waste time on this. It was already 8 or 9 at night when Wang Yu logged off the game after exiting the arena. Mu Zixian was cooking in the kitchen, and Wang Yu had nothing to do, so he held his computer and browsed the forums. Ever since he became a professional gamer, Wang Yu only had these 2 types of entertainment. He would play games online, and he would browse the forums offline. He was becoming more and more like a normal gamer. At this time, the forums had already been flooded with the results of the preliminaries. Regardless of whether it was the main forums or the main city forums, there were posts about the preliminaries everywhere. On the first day of the preliminaries, many surprising dark horse teams had appeared in all 15 servers. Of course, they were grassroots teams after all, and there weren't many who were truly outstanding. Most of them were more down to earth, so they were hyped up. However, it wasn't as if there weren't any truly powerful teams. For example, there was a team called One Hand Covering the Sky, in Zone 15, which made Wang Yu's eyes light up. Among these dark horse teams, Chuanjin's motley crew was also impressively in the list, especially Chun Xiang's battle video of him fighting 3 people at full health by listening to the wind, which had been pushed to second place. Above Chun Xiang's video was a video called The Real Grandmaster of Combat. The name of the video wasn't attractive at all, but Wang Yu still couldn't help but click on it. Firstly, the word Grandmaster of Combat was more attractive to Wang Yu. Secondly, Wang Yu also wanted to see what kind of god could actually suppress Chun Xiang. Wang Yu was stunned when he clicked on the information on the team. The team in the video was a grassroots team from Server 2 called Unparalleled Combat. The specific player information was not shown, only the player's level and class were shown. The average level of Unparalleled Combat's players was only around 40. Compared to other teams at this stage of the game, they were slightly behind. What made Wang Yu even more incredulous was that this team was actually made up of a bunch of Grandmasters of Combat. Damn, The game was all about balance. Not a single warrior, mage, priest, thief, or archer could be left out. Moreover, the advantages of Grandmasters of Combat could not be fully utilized at this stage. If the entire team was made up of Grandmasters of Combat, wouldn't that be asking for a beating? Seeing this, Wang Yu couldn't help but click on the battle video. For a level 40 Grandmaster Combat team to be able to reach first place, there must be something special about him. As expected, when he opened the video, Wang Yu saw an extremely familiar figure. That player's moves were extremely fierce, his priority was shockingly high, and he looked a little handsome. Isn't this that Cloud? At this moment, Mu Zixian brought food into the bedroom and could not help but ask when she saw the player in the video. Yes, it's Nian Luyan. This kid has disappeared for so long, so he's formed a team now. Wang Yu stood up and took the plate from Mu Zixian's hands while turning his head to stare at Nian Luyan in the video. Mu Zixian saw Nian Luyan grabbing his opponent and smashing him around in the video. It was unbelievably powerful. He was so shocked that he took a deep breath and said, "This person is so strong." Although Mu Zixian's own skills were mediocre, after being in Xuanzhen for so long, his standards were still very high. He had never seen any Grandmaster of Combat with such strong judgment. Even Wang Yu did not say that he could grab his opponent and smash them around. Yup, Wang Yu said, this guy's class is Grappler, and all his skills are grab skills. His priority is ridiculously high. Moreover, this guy is an expert in Kung Fu, so it's normal for him to have such skills. If he's that strong, can you beat him? Mu Zixian asked with some surprise. Mu Zixian naturally did not doubt Wang Yu in real life, but it was different in the game. A pure PvP class like Nian Luyan had an advantage over any other class. Wang Yu said, "He's no problem, but I'm most worried about the others in his team." Others? Mu Zixian was puzzled. Who? Are they stronger than him? I can't say for sure, but they're definitely difficult to deal with. As he said that, Wang Yu pointed to a female player in the video who was unparalleled in combat and said, "Do you know her?" Mu Zixian saw the girl's appearance, and his pupils shrank. Isn't that Li Yujia? Mu Zixian had a very deep impression of this strong girl. It's her. Wang Yu said, Nian Liuyun's real name is Li Yunyan, and this girl is Nian Liuyun's older sister. Don't be fooled by her personality. Her Kung Fu is unparalleled in the younger generation. She's that strong? What about you? Mu Zixian saw Wang Yu's evaluation of this girl and couldn't help but ask. Wang Yu said, I'm different from her. My opponents are experts from the older generation. Are you blowing your own trumpet? Mu Zixian's face darkened. Wang Yu said with certainty, you can't ignore this fact. Mu Zixian, these guys over there are also descendants of famous families. Their Kung Fu isn't bad, and they aren't much weaker than Little Yang. Wang Yu pointed at the others. Mu Zixian looked in the direction of Wang Yu's finger and saw two familiar faces. These two idiots were the ones who had challenged Old Tong to a duel that day. You're saying that this team's players are all Kung Fu practitioners? Seeing unparalleled combat's luxurious composition, Mu Zixian was stunned. As the person closest to Wang Yu, Mu Zixian knew how useful Kung Fu was in the game. Just Yang Na alone was an archer, and she could easily beat up a few normal players in close combat. She originally thought that Xuanzhen having two people like this was already amazing. She didn't think that Xuanzhen could pull out more than 10 of them, and all of them were at Yang Na's level. This was two. Wang Yu said, no wonder they're all grandmasters of combat. If we meet them in the Pro League, we'll have a hard time. If it was a 1v1, Wang Yu had absolute confidence that he could beat any one of them. Even if all of them came at him together, Wang Yu wouldn't be afraid. But the problem was that the only player in Xuanzhen's team that could match up to these people was Yang Na. The Pro League also used a point system. Apart from the group battles, the other two battles couldn't be controlled by a single person. Chapter 798. As the saying goes, there is motivation when there's pressure. The competition was bustling with activity, and all the participating teams were working hard to improve themselves. Those who were competing observed their opponents in the arena, and those who weren't competing worked hard to level up. Wang Yu's group didn't idle around either. Although they said that winning or losing didn't matter, and that the most important thing was to participate, they still took it very seriously. After all, if you fell behind, you would be beaten. This was the ancient teaching of their ancestors, and to this group of people who loved to fight, it was even more so. In the next 3 days, Wang Yu's group leveled up and killed bosses during the day, and watched match videos at night to analyze their opponents and devise strategies. They were all very busy. In 3 days, the average level of the team rose to 47. 2 levels wasn't a big improvement, but it wasn't small either. Although they hadn't reached level 50 and couldn't learn new skills, it was better than no improvement at all. At the same time, the results for Groups B, C, and D were also out. As expected of a brand new format, the average level of the teams this time was surprisingly high. There were many dark horses in each region, and Xuanzhen's limelight was completely suppressed by the teams that came later. However, the unparalleled combat team was still at the top, occupying the top spot. At this time, in Xuanzhen's office, Ming Jiandaoxue was holding a map that he had just drawn. The results of the top 8 are out. Our first opponent tomorrow is called Harmony Team. Oh, no one was very interested in Ming Jiandaoxue's information. Harmony Team was the winner of Group D. Everyone had seen this team's matches. In the top 8 in the 7th region, they were a relatively average team, and not much was known about them. Actually, in general, the level of the winners of Groups B, C, and D was about the same. What puzzled everyone the most were the 4 teams that didn't have a bye. This was because the 4 teams that didn't have a bye were the 4 teams that were judged by the system to be the strongest. Even the Raptor team couldn't have a bye, so these 4 teams definitely weren't weak. With regards to these 4 unknown opponents, everyone's interest was quite high. Ming Jiandaoxue also knew that Harmony's skill level wasn't that great. Seeing that the others weren't interested, he quickly added, "Right now, the forums have already opened a betting window. All the top 8 teams have their names on the leaderboard. Is everyone interested in playing?" When they heard that Ming Jiandaoxue had opened the bets, the eyes of the Quanzhun people immediately lit up. These gamblers were really stubborn, especially Chun Xiang, who immediately jumped up and asked, "What are our odds?" 1 to 3, Ming Jiandaoxue said as he looked at the small notebook in his hand. F***, why is it so high? Chun Xiang was both excited and dissatisfied when he saw that his odds were so high. The higher the odds, the lower the evaluation. Xuanzhen's ragtag team was a team that had won the first round. How could their evaluation be so low? Michio Ken spread his hands and said, "That's because we won the first round, and the excitement of the 3 days has long since passed. Besides, our squadron has just been established, and our name isn't that famous to begin with. There are also 4 squadrons that have already gotten a bye, so it's normal for the odds to be high." This was also the truth. The speed at which internet celebrities changed was much faster than in real life. If there was no one especially hyped them up, they would become famous on the first day and fall the next. This was a common occurrence. Xuanzhen's ragtag team was just a newly established squadron. Other than you Huichang players, not many people knew about them. In addition, it had been a long time since the first day of the competition, so it was normal for them to be forgotten. "That's fine. I have 1,000 gold here. Daoxue, you go and bet on us becoming the champion." Chun Xiang took out a bag of gold and threw it to Ming Jiandaoxue. Chun Xiang was famous for being meticulous with his calculations and winning every bet he made. Seeing that Chun Xiang had placed his bet, the others also took out their money and followed suit. In the end, even Mu Zixian threw out 100 gold. Seeing this, Wang Yu asked in surprise, "Don't you hate gambling the most?" Mu Zixian said, "I'll make an exception this time to encourage you guys." "Then why don't you bet more? It's impossible for us to lose anyway." Wang Yu laughed. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I'm here," Wang Yu said shamelessly. Everyone, on the 4th day of the qualifiers, which was also the last day of the qualifiers, everyone finally welcomed the semi-finals of the top 8. The venue was still the city of War God's public arena. Because it was the last day of the competition, the standard was several levels higher than the previous few days. Almost all the players in the region put down what they were doing and came to watch the competition. The number of spectators had already exceeded the system's expectations. The public arena was truly full, and the game company had no choice but to temporarily open up an instance dungeon space to avoid the embarrassing situation of missing tickets. Other than the top 8 teams in the semifinals, there were also 2 teams that had won the semifinals for a total of 10 teams. Very unexpectedly, in a resting room backstage, Wang Yu's group met their old rivals, the Scarlet Flame Squadron. Rolling Mario was followed by Mo Xiaobei and Red Spider Lily, who sat beside Xuanjin's squadron in an incomparably coquettish manner. "Hey, old cow, your squadron's flag isn't bad." Before Wang Yu could speak, Rolling Mario greeted him first. Wang Yu said, Hee, impressive, right? I designed it." "Impressive, impressive." Rolling Mario nodded. "Speaking of which, why are you guys here?" Wang Yu turned his head and asked in bewilderment. "I remember that you guys were eliminated by us in Thorn City." Hee. The Rolling Mario smiled proudly and said, "We lost to you last time, okay? Relying on my intelligence, I will soon turn the tables. But the team that won this time wasn't you guys. Speaking of which team are you in?" To place one's pride asked from the side. Everyone had seen the videos of the 4 winning teams, and the Scarlet Flame Squadron wasn't among them. "Team B." Rolling Mario laughed. "It's all thanks to you guys, oh? What does that have to do with us?" Wang Yu asked doubtfully. "It's all thanks to you guys beating the Raptor Squadron until they surrendered. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to win the semifinals." Rolling Mario's words were filled with relief. "Then you guys are really pitiful." Wang Yu shook his head repeatedly. "Yeah." Rolling Mario was confused at first, then he laughed. "You should say that you were lucky, old cow. Don't be jealous of me." "Why would I be jealous of you? You resurrected twice in a row just to send us a kill. It must have been hard on you." Wang Yu said with a smile. What Wang Yu said was right. Luck could only be regarded as a surprise attack. In a competition, what mattered the most was one's strength. The Scarlet Flame battle team's strength wasn't too strong. Even if they didn't lose to the Quanjin sect, they would still lose to others. The fact that they had revived twice to die could only mean that Mario, who had rolled, was very hardworking. F***CK. You despicable cow. Mario, who was rolling on the ground, pointed his middle finger at Wang Yu. Chapter 799. Wang Yu frowned when he heard someone belittling his design. He turned around and saw a team of well-equipped players standing behind them. A short assassin was kicking his team flag with a mocking expression. "Who are you?" Wang Yu asked in dissatisfaction. The team flag was the face of the team. Although it wasn't a good thing for a motley crew, it was still quite rude to be kicked around like this. F***CK. You don't even know who we are? Open your dog eyes and see what this is. The short assassin pointed at the team flag behind him in an arrogant manner. Xuanjin frowned as they looked in the direction the short assassin was pointing at. They saw a very arrogant flag behind the group of players. The flag had a pitch-black skull painted on it, and the words Satan were written on both sides of the skull. Seeing this battle flag, everyone immediately understood. So it was the Satan battle team. This battle team was the one that had a bye in Group A in the first round. Everyone had heard of it. To place one's pride, rubbed his chin and mumbled, "Satan? Bullshit team. What an interesting name." Uff. To place one's pride's words, Wang Yu and the others couldn't help but laugh. "Chick, I've told you to study hard. Can you repeat what's written on it?" Wu Ji smiled and said contemptuously, "It's bullshit. Am I wrong?" To place one's pride didn't know if he really didn't know it or not, but he had a harmless look on his face. The short assassin finally realized that Xuanjin was making fun of him. He immediately roared, F***CK? Bastard, do you know what Satan is? To place one's pride said with a straight face, "I think bullshit sounds better. You bastard." The short assassin was furious. He pulled out a dagger and was about to stab to place one's pride. To place one's pride wasn't afraid of him. He raised his fists and got into a fighting stance. At this moment, a knight wearing white armor suddenly walked out from behind the short man. He reached out and grabbed the short assassin, saying, "Beetle nut, don't be rash." As he spoke, The white-armored knight stared at Wang Yu and the others with a fake smile. I'm Lucifer, the captain of the Satan battle team. Which battle team are you guys from? A motley crew, Wang Yu said indifferently. Oh, Lucifer sneered and said, so you guys are just a bunch of misfits. I heard that the Raptor battle team was defeated by you guys? Not bad. Wang Yu nodded. Very good. Lucifer nodded pretentiously, then said in a very pretentious manner, I merely defeated a bunch of trash. Don't think that you're that great. Did I? Wang Yu was speechless. From the beginning, it was that idiot called Beetle Nut who was looking for trouble. Did the people from Chuanjin think that they were very powerful? Humph. Lucifer snorted coldly and said, I'll warn you again. It's not too late to return to your own city. Otherwise, it won't be as simple as just embarrassing yourself. Let's go. After saying that, Lucifer led his team to the front of the lounge. Wang Yu and the people from Chuanjin were stunned. What a narcissistic person. Did he automatically ignore the words of others? Mingdu crossed his arms and grinned. Where did this kid learn to be pretentious? Why is he so low class? My awkwardness is acting up. Wuji laughed and said, Haha, this idiot must be secretly cheering for his pretentious act just now. Although I know it's very childish, I really want to beat him up. To place one's pride, clench his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. Haha, it's just an idiot. There's no need to pay attention to him. Everyone tried to persuade him. However, Mario, who was rolling, said disapprovingly, Don't be careless. The guys from Satan Battle Team are really capable. Is that so? I can't tell at all. To place one's pride, said disdainfully. Mario, who was rolling, said, the battle teams that are able to get a bye are not easy to deal with. These guys have a bad reputation. I hope we don't meet them at the beginning. Is it an exaggeration? Mingdu asked skeptically. Yes. Mingjian Daoshua said. It said that these people are very vicious and will think of ways to humiliate their opponents. Their battle team slogan is let everyone feel evil. Can these people live until now? Chun Xian was a little doubtful when he heard the slogan of Satan Battle Team and saw the appearance of this group of people. The value of life in the game wasn't very high. Therefore, certain things that affected the mind were very important to players. Let everyone feel evil was clearly an anti-human approach. Even the people from Chuanjin didn't dare to cross the line. These guys actually used this as a slogan. They really didn't know what was good for them. There's no other way. They are too strong. The big guilds can't be bothered to provoke them, and the small guilds can't. Mario, who was rolling, shook his head and said, just like you guys. F***CK off. We have a bottom line. Everyone from Chuanjin glared angrily at Mario. They are worse than you guys at the bottom line. Mario, who was rolling, said with certainty. All the battle teams had arrived while they were talking, and the curtains of the competition had begun. As Flaming Red Battle Team was the team that had won the revival round. The first match was between Flaming Red Battle Team and the other team that had won the revival round, Cloud Sky Battle Team. Flaming Red Battle Team's standard could only be considered above average in the game, and Cloud Sky Battle Team was even worse than Flaming Red Battle Team. These two battle teams were completely noobs pecking at each other. There wasn't much to look at, and it was more than enough to be a joke. Of course, this was for the experts. There weren't many experts in the audience, and most of them were just here to watch the show. Therefore, it was considered a good opening. Flaming Red Battle Team, led by Mario, won the opening match. Next up was the second match. The second match was between Satan Battle Team and Lotus Battle Team. Lotus Battle Team was an empty team in Group B, and they were currently sitting not far from Chuanjin. Lotus Battle Team was also a veteran expert battle team. It was said that they were old enemies with Satan Battle Team, and the next match was bound to be a fierce battle between dragons and tigers. After the first match, Lotus Battle Team was directly teleported to the arena. Satan Battle Team, who had yet to enter the arena, was about to leave the lounge when Lucifer walked straight to Wang Yu and Wuji. He arrogantly said, "You guys take a good look at what's called a gap. If you see it, then hurry up and scram." Wuji was stunned for a moment. Ignoring Lucifer's pretentious act, he asked Wang Yu, There's something wrong with this guy's brain, right? Wang Yu nodded. Yeah, I think so, Lucifer coldly said. You guys can pretend to be calm, but I know that you guys are actually afraid. Motherf asterisk her. Wang Yu and Wu Ji turned their heads away, indicating that they didn't know this idiot. Chapter 800. Team Lotus was a very famous team in the 7th District, and it was also a team from Thorn City. Wang Yu and the others had seen the skills of these guys not long ago in the competition in Thorn City. Although the opponents at that time were mediocre, it was not hard to see that this veteran team was not weak. At the very least, they were on par with Team Raptor. Since Team Satan and Team Lotus were old rivals, their strengths should not be too far apart. The first rule was the same old rules. Each team would choose 5 people and take turns to fight. The first round caused a stir in the audience. The first round was unexpectedly between Team Satan's Lucifer and Team Lotus's 8 guns, and the map was a wrestling ring. The wrestling ring map was similar to the ring map. There were no obstacles, and the scene was much larger than the ring, which was very suitable for a head-on fight. 8 Guns was the captain of Team Lotus, and his class was a punishment paladin. 8 Guns was quite famous in the 7th District. Punishment paladins were a class that excelled in duels, and 8 Guns was also a veteran expert. His long spear was invincible, and he was known as the 7th District's #1 punishment paladin. This wasn't a boast, but a title given to him by the players. Not to mention others. Even a professional like Wang Yu felt that the strength of challenging all guns was commendable. From this, it could be seen how powerful challenging all guns was. Lucifer was even more so. This person's name was pretentious. His clothes were pretentious, his hobby was pretentious, and his looks were not bad. He was the typical perfect man in the eyes of the female players. Coupled with his demonic temperament, he was also quite famous in the 7th District. After all, women like bad men. Pity this old man who is pure. Many of the female players at the scene had come because of Lucifer's name. Now that Lucifer was on the stage, there were cries everywhere. Damn, don't let me run into him, or else I'll kill him. Seeing the female players in the audience, so crazy, Mingdu to place one's pride, and the others gritted their teeth. They wanted to beat Lucifer up right there and then. What's wrong with you guys? Wang Yu asked Wu Ji, who was also gritting his teeth. He's not a good person. We need to get rid of a scourge for the people, Wu Ji said righteously. A man like Lucifer was definitely the public enemy of men. If there's a reason, he would do it. If there was no reason, he would create a reason to do it. Is that so? I think he's quite handsome, Mu Zixian said with a smile. Damn it, don't stop me. I'll crush him to death with my own hands. Wang Yu clenched his fists. Everyone, Lucifer's class was a Guardian Knight. Not only did the Guardian Knight look good, but it was also a very powerful tank class. Although it was a support class, it was not weak in PK. It belonged to the type of jack of all trades. However, compared to the punishment paladin that specialized in PK, it was still slightly weaker. If Lucifer dared to use this class in the first round, he should be very confident in himself. The countdown began, and the two of them instantly exchanged blows. Picking all directions was a very experienced player. He immediately used charge to crash into Lucifer. Lucifer was also a knight, but his judgment wasn't as high as Sweeping Spear. Seeing Sweeping Spear charging towards him, Lucifer jumped back and threw a suppression talisman to the ground. Sweeping Spear, who was in the midst of charging, was immediately slowed down. Lucifer took out another talisman and slapped it onto his scepter. The scepter turned into a giant hammer, smashing towards Sweeping Spear. As an old opponent of Lucifer's, Sweeping Spear naturally knew Lucifer's style. He extended his spear and used spear thrust. Seeing this, Lucifer raised his left hand and blocked Sweeping Spear's spear. Only then did everyone realize that Lucifer had a transparent shield on his left arm. Advance courageously. At this moment, Sweeping Spear's suppression and deceleration effect had been removed. Following a loud shout from Sweeping Spear, his spear once again thrust forward. Lucifer was pushed back a few steps. Rising Dragon Strike. Without waiting for Lucifer to stabilize himself, Sweeping Spear's spear turned and stabbed towards Lucifer. With a ferocious upward flick, Lucifer was knocked into the air. Floating shadow stab. After knocking Lucifer into the air, Sweeping Spear followed up again, stabbing Lucifer 3 times in a row. Then, he jumped back and grabbed the end of the spear with one hand and smashed it forward. Horned Dragon Sweep. Sweeping Spear roared angrily and Lucifer was sent flying. As expected of an expert, Sweeping Spear's rhythm and skill effects were just right. He immediately unleashed a beautiful combo. As a tank, Lucifer's health was over 70,000 to 80,000. After Sweeping Spear's combo, Lucifer's health was reduced by a third. Good hit. Seeing Lucifer being beaten to such a state, Mingdu and the others loudly cheered. However, Wang Yu said with a serious expression, "Not good." "Why? Isn't sweeping guns so cool?" Mario, who was rolling on the ground, asked Wang Yu in confusion. Wang Yu said calmly, "Sweeping Spear should have stuck to Lucifer, but he was too hasty. That final smash was completely superfluous." The essence of a punishment paladin was their long arms and fast attack speed. Their attacks were continuous and the opponent had no way to resist. Originally, according to Sweeping Spear's combo, he should have been able to knock Lucifer into the air with 2 horizontal slashes. However, Sweeping Spear forgot that his opponent was a tank and actually chose to end it with Horned Dragon Sweep. Although the last Horned Dragon Sweep was very cool, it did not instantly kill Lucifer. The knockback effect directly gave Lucifer a chance to counterattack. As expected, just as Wang Yu finished speaking, Lucifer climbed up and rushed towards Sweeping Spear. Total annihilation. Sweeping Spear's spear struck the ground and swept a horizontal light from left to right, attempting to interrupt Lucifer's charge. Unexpectedly, Lucifer raised the giant hammer in his hands and leaped into the air. The Skyfall hammer smashed down towards Sweeping Spear. Sweeping Spear hurriedly jumped back, pulled back his spear, and stabbed diagonally upwards. Lucifer smiled. Halfway through the skill, he suddenly dropped to the ground. Then, he flipped forward and landed under Sweeping Spear's feet. He then slapped down a talisman. A light flashed under Sweeping Spear's feet as Rising Formation activated. Sweeping Spear involuntarily flew into the air and was knocked into the air. Seeing this scene, Mario and the others, who were rolling on the ground, widened their eyes. Sky Smash Formation. It's actually Sky Smash Formation. Mingdu, who was at the side, said in surprise. Sky Smash Formation was a set of paladin skills that could be used in a short combo. Skyfall Hammer was an air-to-ground skill that had a large gap, so paladins normally did not use this skill. However, Sky Smash Formation used the Skyfall Hammer to attract the opponent, and then when the opponent was in the air, it would suddenly descend and then knock Rising Formation into the air. Because paladins' attacks had a large stun time, Skyfall Hammer stun time was also very long, so it was very difficult to control how long Skyfall Hammer was in the air. One could imagine the difficulty of using Sky Smash Formation. Chapter 801. Shooting in all directions, who was in the air, realized that he had been tricked. He quickly used Quick Recover in the air, but paladins were not agility-type classes. "You're done for." Before Sweeping Spear could adjust its balance, Lucifer sneered coldly. He hugged the giant hammer with both hands and swung it in a circle from left to right. The giant hammer followed Lucifer's movements and was lifted up from top to bottom, activating Holy Strike, slaying the air. Holy Strike was a level 45 ultimate skill for paladins. Although it was a simple swing of the hammer, and its activation time was relatively slow, its damage was extremely high. Moreover, it had powerful crowd control effects. It was the strongest skill among all level 45 classes. Boom! With a loud bang, Lucifer's hammer slammed into All About Guns. All About Guns was sent flying from the air, and at the same time, half of All About Guns' HP had been taken away by the hammer. F***CK, that damage. Seeing the damage of Lucifer's hammer, the audience was dumbfounded. Although punishment paladins did not add points to vitality, they were still heavy armor classes. Not only did they have high HP, but their physical defense was also shockingly high. Lucifer was actually able to take half of shooting in all directions HP. If it were any other class, they would have died instantly. Lightning Rush Holy Light. After successfully sending shooting in all directions flying, Lucifer did not stop. With a shout, he waved his hand and slapped a rune on his weapon. Immediately, the hammer in Lucifer's hand shone brightly. Lucifer took a step back and swung his hammer down on shooting in all directions head. Boom! Lightning Rush Holy Light was a level 40 pure damage skill for paladins. Its damage was not inferior to Holy Strike, Wandering Strike. After taking 2 hits from Lucifer, shooting in all directions was smashed to the ground. He was on the verge of death. The HP bar on his head was almost empty and he was stunned. 2 hits. Lucifer only used 2 hits to reduce shooting in all directions from full HP to skin and bones. This damage was beyond the imagination of normal players. Even Xuanzhen's group was stunned by Lucifer's damage. After reaching level 40, the characteristics of the various professions were gradually revealed. Even Wang Yu couldn't instantly kill a heavy armor profession. However, Lucifer was only a tank class that did not deal much damage. He had actually killed a heavy armor class with just 2 skills. This damage was indeed shocking. Humph! Trash! Lucifer coldly snorted. He kicked the giant hammer off the ground and turned it back into a scepter. He then walked in front of the defenseless against all guns and stomped on against all guns' face. F***CK your mother. Do you dare to give me a quick answer? Below the stage, the players from Team Lotus couldn't help but curse out loud when they saw this scene. The audience and Wang Yu and the others also frowned. In the game, dignity was more important than life. A warrior could be killed, but not humiliated. It was clearly something that could be solved with a hammer, but they had to torture the corpse in this way. It was a bit disgusting. Fortunately, Against All Guns didn't have much health left. After 3 kicks, Against All Guns turned into a ball of white light and disappeared. Lucifer sneered and pointed his middle finger at the place where Against All Guns disappeared. Then, he was also sent out of the arena. This guy really has a bad taste. He really is just like the rumors say. The players in the lounge couldn't help but secretly click their tongues when they saw this scene. The competition continued. After Lucifer won the first round, the players in the second round were also sent into the arena. Team Satan's style was very similar to Lucifer's. Their methods were very overboard. Everyone had no bottom line and was committed to humiliating their opponents to the greatest extent possible. However, Team Lotus wasn't weak either. Although they lost the first round, it might be because Team Satan's methods were too disgusting. It triggered the anger of these guys, causing Team Lotus' fighting spirit to soar. The battles that followed were quite exciting. Unfortunately, Team Lotus was still eliminated by Team Satan in the end. After all, Team Satan's players weren't easy to deal with, especially Lucifer. Whether it was in solo or group battles, his performance was very eye-catching. With him around, Team Lotus was constantly suppressed and had no chance to fight back. Such a strong performance that set the pace couldn't help but give a strong sense of oppression to the participating players present. Damn, this Lucifer's level should be at the professional level, right? Mario, who was rolling, exclaimed. A player beside Mario, who was rolling, said, "Not at all. I think this guy is at least first rate." First rate. Mario, who was rolling, was so shocked that he sucked in a breath of cold air. I hope we don't meet them in the next round. There were already people secretly praying. Upon hearing this, Wuji sneered and said, "Humph, with their strength, it won't be difficult for them to advance to the finals. As long as you guys continue fighting, you'll meet them." Not bad. You have good taste. At this time, Team Satan's players were sent back to the lounge. Hearing Wuji's words, Lucifer looked at Wuji with admiration. F***CK. Wuji trembled under Lucifer's gaze, feeling extremely disgusted. Immediately after, Lucifer once again pretended to be pretentious in his usual way. I advise you guys to forfeit so that everyone doesn't waste time. Arrogant idiot. Just as Lucifer finished speaking, a voice suddenly came from his side. Everyone turned their heads to look at Wang Yu and Wu Ji. Just now, only these two had called Lucifer that. However, Wu Ji and Wang Yu were also confused, looking around for the person who had spoken their minds. At this time, Mo Xiaobei walked out and pointed at Lucifer. What are you pretending to be? Do you really think the championship is so easy? Are you not convinced? Lucifer raised his eyebrows and looked at Mo Xiaobei. Oof. Mo Xiaobei snorted and turned her face away, ignoring this pretentious guy. Being ignored, Lucifer's expression changed, and a trace of coldness flashed in his eyes. At the same time, the preparation time was over, and the teams for the third round were sent out of the arena. The teams for the third round were Team Outyin and Team Dragon Emperor. These two teams' names were very arrogant, and their strength was only SOSO. They were much stronger than Team Red Flame, but everyone had just seen the high-level competition between Team Satan and Team Lotus. These two teams' level really couldn't keep up. After a big battle, Team Outyin won with a slight advantage and advanced to the finals. Following, that was the fourth round. The teams for the fourth round were Chuanjin's Motley Crowd and Harmony Team. When the time was up, everyone was sent into the arena. Harmony Team was the same as Motley Crowd, an unknown small team. It could be said that everyone knew nothing about this team before. Chapter 802. The only unusual thing was that apart from the leader of the Harmony Battle Team, the rest of the players were basically all female. In terms of competition, although the stats were the same in the game, in terms of mentality and reaction, male players were generally stronger than female players. It was clearly unusual that the Harmony Battle Team was made up entirely of female players. Of course, this was a competition. No matter how gentlemanly they would not go over and let others win. Everyone be careful. This team is not as simple as you think. As soon as they entered the arena, Wang Yu suddenly reminded them. Question mark. Everyone was stunned. What's going on? Wang Yu pointed at the beautiful captain of the Harmony Battle Team and said, I've been paying attention to that woman since the beginning. She has a very calm demeanor. That's right. Wu Ji said, I noticed it too. When we were in the lounge just now, her team was quietly sitting in the corner. Even though the Satan Battle Team was so pretentious, they didn't even look around. Oh, everyone heard this and could not help but be shocked. Women had always been gossipy. Just now, the Satan Battle Team was very high profile and started a group ridicule as soon as they entered the arena. These women didn't even look at them. What kind of discipline was this? Unity was the main component of a battle team's strength, and the most direct manifestation was team discipline. To be able to have such discipline, they were definitely not some three-legged cat characters. Thinking back to the previous matches of this battle team, although they were able to win every time, it was always by a small margin. If it was like this once, it would be understandable. But if it was like this every time, it was a little thought-provoking. Everyone knew that the more capable a person was, the more low-key they would be. This Harmony Battle Team was neither servile nor overbearing, neither arrogant nor rash. They exuded a steady temperament. Even if they were not the strongest, they were the most terrifying. Why didn't you say so earlier? Thinking of this, everyone started to criticize Wang Yu. Wang Yu's expression did not change as he said, My wife is here. If she finds out that I peeked at others, I won't be able to live. F***CK. Everyone gave him the middle finger. Wang Yu turned his head and ignored them. How about this? Wu Ji thought for a moment and said, Old cow, it's better if you don't play in the first round. F***CK. Wang Yu was furious. Didn't we agree that I would go first? Wu Ji said, As usual, let's test the waters first. Can't I test him? Wang Yu was very unhappy with Wu Ji's action of depriving him of the right to fight. Everyone curled their lips and said, Nonsense. You don't even know how strong you are. Even if you test it out, we don't know what our opponents are like. Relatively speaking, Wang Yu's combat standards were too high. Ordinary players could only last one move against Wang Yu. If an expert player was lucky, they could last 2 moves. The difference between them was like the difference between an ant and a bug. It didn't mean much. Even if it was a professional player, Wang Yu would have the upper hand against several of them. Who would believe that a player of this level would be a test? Who could guarantee that the person he would casually kill would be an expert? Besides, Wang Yu's ability to express himself was basically zero. Even if he knew his opponent's level, he wouldn't be able to say anything. It would be better to find someone to test the waters. Okay, under everyone's disdain, Wang Yu had no choice but to compromise. The order of the first round was reset. They were Yin Lao Air, Wang Yu, Ming Du, Bao San, to place one's pride. Yin Lao Air's skill level wasn't too high in Xuanjin, but it wasn't too low either. He was a good test player, so he was placed first. Wang Yu couldn't be offended, so he was placed second. The other three were won by Scissors, Bao San, and Hammer. Next, it was Harmony's turn to choose the setting. Harmony maintained their usual style and chose a random setting. Such a choice stunned the people of the Quan Zhun sect once again. PvP and Rebirth had very high requirements for the setting. Especially in the first duel, the team had the ability to choose their own players. The home team had the advantage of choosing their opponent's class. However, Harmony chose random, which was too surprising. After choosing the setting, Yin Lao Air and the first player on the opposite side were teleported into the arena. Unsurprisingly, as usual, Harmony's first player was still their captain, that ray of sunshine. After the two entered the arena, the setting was randomly generated City Streets. City Streets was the central street intersection of every major city. It wasn't too big or too small, and the buildings on the side of the street were the only obstacles. At this time, the two were standing on the opposite side of the street, looking at each other. Yin Lao Air was a steady person, just like his class. Against every opponent, Yin Lao Air wouldn't underestimate them. Looking at that ray of sunshine, Yin Lao Air raised a huge shield in his right hand to cover his whole body. Then he pulled out a one-handed sword with his left hand and hid it behind a shield. That ray of sunshine's class was an assassin. After reaching level 40, the tank class had taken shape, giving the invincible assassin a natural enemy. Because assassins specialized in burst attacks, if one set couldn't instantly kill them, they would have to wait for another wave of attacks. On the other hand, shield warriors had the highest armor, so an assassin's combo wouldn't be able to instantly kill them. In addition, most of their control skills had high priority, especially taunt, which could forcibly interrupt the assassin's skills. Therefore, assassins and shield warriors were at a disadvantage in close combat. That ray of sunshine narrowed his eyes and looked at Yin Lao Air. For some reason, when Yin Lao Air saw that ray of sunshine's eyes, he felt as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. The countdown began. Yin Lao Air hurriedly retreated and leaned against the wall. This was the standard action to deal with an assassin's backstab. However, that ray of sunshine didn't use stealth. Instead, he dashed across the street and ran towards Yin Lao Air. Seeing that ray of sunshine was rushing towards him, Yin Lao Air was secretly shocked. Damn, this girl is a real man. Do you want to fight her head-on? I'm not afraid of her. Thinking of this, Yin Lao Air raised his shield and collided with that ray of sunshine. Seeing this, that ray of sunshine smiled slightly. With a twist of his feet, he turned his body and lightly jumped to the right side of Yin Lao Air. At the same time, the dagger in his hand drew an arc in the air and accurately stabbed towards Yin Lao Air. Yin Lao Air hurriedly canceled charge and slashed at that ray of sunshine with a one-handed sword in his left hand. That ray of sunshine's left thumb suddenly stretched out and blocked Yin Lao Air's wrist that was grabbing the sword. The dagger in his right hand accurately stabbed into Yin Lao Air's right rib. 4511 Yin Lao Air lost a layer of his HP. Yin Lao Air, whose wrist was blocked, suddenly felt weak in his left hand and almost lost his weapon. At this time, that ray of sunshine lowered his body, retracted his left hand, and slapped the hilt of the dagger in his right hand heavily. Poochie! The dagger was stabbed deep again. 8422 Yin Lao Air received a second round of damage from this attack. P.S. Hello everyone, this is an automatic update. When you see this chapter, this old man is already on the way to the west. I won't be stealing sofas for the next few days. Of course, if there's a chance, I will still steal sofas. Chapter 803. At this moment, Yin Lao Air steadied himself. He twisted his body and activated Shield Bash. Immediately, a huge tower shield smashed towards him. That Sunshine unhurriedly pulled out his dagger. At the same time, he front kick landed on Yin Lao Air's thigh. Front kick was a small control skill used by assassins to interrupt the opponent's skills. Although Yin Lao Air's Shield Bash had a higher priority, it would only be effective when the skills collided. As an agility class, Sunshine was much faster than Yin Lao Air. His kick arrived first and interrupted Yin Lao Air's Shield Bash. At the same time, Yin Lao Air lost his balance and fell to the side. Yin Lao Air's reaction speed was amazing. The moment he fell to the side, he threw a taunt at that Sunshine. That Sunshine was involuntarily pulled to Yin Lao Air's side. At that time, Yin Lao Air swung his sword at that Sunshine again. That Sunshine narrowed his eyes. Instead of retreating, he suddenly took a step forward and stuck to Yin Lao Air's chest. Yin Lao Air pulled back his right arm and was about to use his shield to block him. That Sunshine raised his hand and stabbed 2 fingers into Yin Lao Air's eyes. F***CK. Second brother Yin had never seen such a shameless move before. That ray of sunlight sudden insertion gave second brother Yin a fright. After all, it was a full elemental simulation. Even if he knew that he wouldn't feel any pain and wouldn't be blinded, when someone else used this move, as a normal person, he would subconsciously dodge. At this moment, Yin Lao Air couldn't care about anything else. He hurriedly turned his face to the side. That Sunshine smirked. He took advantage of the situation and raised his knee, heavily hitting Yin Lao Air's lower abdomen. Under the effect of conditioned reflex, Yin Lao Air's body bent down. That Sunshine grabbed Yin Lao Air's left hand and used his fingers to flick Yin Lao Air's left arm to his back. A stab, crotch kick. He flicked his finger. That ray of sunlight was used so naturally, so smoothly that the audience broke out in a cold sweat. This woman was not to be trifled with. Mingdu wiped the sweat on his forehead with lingering fear and said, "Thank God." Fortunately, Wuji didn't let me go first. To place one's pride, also said, "We should offer incense to Wuji." F***CKU, I'm still alive. Wuji was furious. So it's the MO family style. Wang Yu rubbed his chin and said, "You guys better be careful later." "What?" Mingdu, and to place one's pride, asked Wang Yu at the same time. Wang Yu smiled and said, "Looking at them, they should be from the same unit. My condolences." The MO family style was a very obscure fist technique. Even during the golden age of martial arts, not many people knew about this fist technique. However, everyone would definitely have heard of women's self-defense techniques. Women's self-defense techniques were selected from the MO family style. This set of fist techniques was full of killing intent, and every move was aimed at a vital point. The techniques used to deal with hooligans were used to the fullest. The MO family style was not widely spread to begin with, and its source had long been cut off. Now, only women's self-defense techniques were left on the market. Since that ray of sunlight was using women's self-defense techniques, and her team members were almost all women, it was obvious that these women were from a certain club that specialized in this stuff. Even though there was no sense of pain in the game, if one were to be hit with such a sinister move, it would be embarrassing if they were traumatized. Therefore, it was better to be careful. That ray of sunlight was clearly very skilled in martial arts, and her actual combat ability was quite good. While everyone was stunned, that ray of sunlight broke Yin Lao Air's fingers and stabbed Yin Lao Air twice in the back of his waist. Yin Lao Air was beaten senseless. He never thought that he would be treated like this one day. However, in the end, Yin Lao Air had the advantage of a profession. He exerted strength in his arm and pulled his arm back. That ray of sunlight jumped and rode on Yin Lao Air's neck. She grabbed Yin Lao Air's neck with one hand and quickly waved a dagger with the other, stabbing Yin Lao Air's neck twice. If a hooligan met this girl, he would really have 8 lifetimes of bad luck. In fact, that ray of sunlight was only learning women's self-defense techniques. It was obviously not enough to play the game. Her real strength was about the same as Yin Lao Air's. However, this girl gave Yin Lao Air such a show of strength as soon as she came up. Before Yin Lao Air could react, he was stabbed until he had less than 30% of his HP left. When Yin Lao Air calmed down, it was obviously too late. In just 7 or 8 minutes, Yin Lao Air's HP was reduced to 0 and he was knocked off the stage. The Harmony team won the first round. After Yin Lao Air was knocked off the stage, the Chuanjin group of animals didn't laugh at him for the first time. Instead, they held Yin Lao Air's hand and comforted him. "Second brother, it's been hard on you." Yin Lao Air looked like he had nothing left to live for. "God knows what I just experienced." "Old cow." Yin Lao Air suddenly grabbed Wang Yu's hand and said, Wang Yu thought that Yin Lao Air was reminding him to be careful. He hurriedly said, "Don't say it. I know that they only bully people like you." "No," Yin Lao Air said. "You have to take revenge for me." Wang Yu's opponent was a female warrior called Thorny Rose. There should be a story behind a girl's name. When the timer started, Thorny Rose lowered her head and rushed over. Charge had a high priority. Wang Yu naturally wouldn't take a head-on, so he jumped back to avoid it. Thorny Rose saw Wang Yu jump back and stopped to kick his crotch. This kick was neither high nor low. From the audience's point of view, although it didn't have the visual impact of that ray of sunlight, it looked like she was one step slower. However, this action was more sinister. No wonder they could win so many matches so quietly. It was because of this kind of dirty kick. The person who was kicked in the crotch was not a fool. He definitely wouldn't announce that he was kicked in the crotch by a girl. If he met someone who was more shameless, he might even rush to add the girl as a friend. If it was an ordinary player, this kick would definitely be a solid one. However, this girl obviously didn't know what Wang Yu did. Wasn't it showing off in front of Wang Yu? Wang Yu reached down unhurriedly and grabbed Thorny Rose's leg in his hand. Then he turned around and threw Thorny Rose on the wall behind Wang Yu like a pile of mud. Then, Wang Yu raised her leg and kicked the back of Rose Thorny's head. Rose Thorny was kicked to the point that nothing was left of her. The audience was still waiting to see Wang Yu's performance. In the end, in less than 3 seconds, the result was out. Most people didn't react to what happened. It wasn't until Wang Yu was teleported off the stage and the big screen replayed the scene in slow motion that everyone saw Thorny Rose's tragic death. Damn, he's so ruthless to a girl. Is he even human? Seeing this situation, the players on the field were indignant and cast angry gazes at the Quanjin sect camp. It was normal for people to not learn from their mistakes. When Ray of Sunlight tortured Yin Lao Air, they felt their backs go numb. Now, that Wang Yu tortured a member of Harmony, someone came out to be a saint. Chapter 804. The third round was Mingdu's turn. Mingdu's luck was pretty good. His opponent turned out to be a foreign girl. That girl had blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin, and a beautiful appearance. She seemed to be unique among this group of beautiful girls. This girl was called Desert Poplar. It was a very old name. She was an archer. Archers always wore revealing clothes. Desert Poplar was also a Westerner. Her curvy body was undoubtedly exposed. It made people's blood boil. To Place One's Pride and Wuji were envious when they saw Mingdu's opponent. Why is the opponent Mingdu? Isn't this a waste of youth? Wuji rubbed his hands and said regretfully, "Damn, Mingdu, do you dare to switch with me?" To Place One's Pride shouted under the stage. He didn't care if Mingdu could hear him or not. With Mingdu's character, he would ignore To Place One's Pride even if he heard him, let alone if he couldn't hear him. Wuji was also regretful. "If I knew this, I would have personally gone up. Go up my ass. If someone kicks your crotch, can you withstand it?" To Place One's Pride shamelessly started to taunt Wuji. Wuji rolled his eyes and said, "So what if you can withstand it? Do you know how to pick up girls?" Vulgar. To Place One's Pride said, "I'm going to ask for a foreign language. Retard. I can also tutor her in Chinese." The two trash inexplicably started a quarrel. Everyone was completely speechless. To Place One's Pride was still fine. He was still young and in the stage of retard. To place one's pride, a smart person like Wuji was skillfully dragged down by place one's pride. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Mingdu and the two idiots under the stage were also jackals of the same tribe. At this time, he was verbally harassing the girl. "Miss Huyang, let's go for a drink after the fight," Mingdu said to Huyang, who was 20 meters away from them, coquettishly. The arena was fully open to the audience. Whether it was the audio or the video, Mingdu's words were clearly heard by everyone. Seeing that Mingdu was so shameless that he even flirted with a girl in the arena, the audience couldn't help but be furious. F***CK. Is this bastard going to flirt with a girl or fight one-on-one? If he really can't do it, replace me. Mother of **Kerr, this is nothing. Last time, this son of a B***TCH was sleeping in the arena. What the hell is this? I'm stronger than him even when I'm on the field. There were also some spectators who recognized Mingdu as the idiot who wasted everyone's time a few days ago. Just as everyone was scolding Mingdu for being shameless, the girl winked at Mingdu and replied in fluent Mandarin, "Sure, if you let me win this round, we can still do something after we're drunk." The foreign girl was indeed extraordinary. Not only did she not feel shy because of Mingdu's teasing, but she also retaliated even more fiercely. F***CK, there's such a good thing. Once Desert Poplar said this, everyone's cursing turned into envy. And when Wang Yu and the others heard Desert Poplar's words, their hearts suddenly thumped. The people of Chuanjin knew better than anyone what kind of person Mingdu was. Don't be fooled by Mingdu's ability to talk tough. In reality, that was just showing off in front of these stupid old men of Chuanjin. This guy was an old virgin. He had never even held a girl's hand before. In the past, when girls spoke to him, they would just say things like, "Hee, it's okay," or "Go take a shower." No one had ever said something like that to him. As a matter of fact, when he heard Desert Poplar's words, Mingdu's old face immediately turned red. Everyone was even more afraid. After all, this guy Mingdu's way of thinking was different from normal people. Who knew what he would do? This is a bit difficult. My friends are watching, Mingdu stuttered. When everyone heard this, they secretly wiped away their sweat. They thought to themselves, luckily, this B***star doesn't have any sperm in his brain. Desert Poplar laughed and said mockingly, "So you're actually this useless, but I can let you shoot me first." Mingdu paused for a moment before saying, "Really?" Desert Poplar was slightly stunned, and then asked with some surprise. This girl had just said it casually. Who knew that Mingdu would actually take it seriously? "Of course," Mingdu said with a face of sage. "I'm a gentleman. Modesty is my virtue. Remember to buy me a drink." "Okay, then I won't be polite." Desert Poplar smiled slightly. He knocked his bow and aimed at Mingdu. Desert Poplar's bow, an arrow, emitted a dazzling light. It wasn't hard to recognize that this was the archer's level 45 ultimate, Meteor Chase the Moon. Meteor Chase the Moon was a charged attack. The longer the charge time, the higher the damage. It was clear that Desert Poplar wanted to kill him in one hit. The crowd booed. They had seen shameless people, but they had never seen someone so shameless. He actually dared to publicly fix a match. Mingdu, this trash. I overestimated him. To place one's pride, angrily cursed when he saw Mingdu standing there and letting people shoot at him. Yang Na and Exquisite Dream also looked at Mingdu with disdain. Wuji stared at Mingdu in the arena and said, "Don't rush. Mingdu isn't that kind of person." At the same time, Desert Poplar finally finished charging. He released the bowstring with his left hand, and the arrows turned into countless shooting stars, flying towards Mingdu. Mingdu's eyes narrowed. He suddenly didn't advance, but instead rushed towards the shooting stars. In an instant, Mingdu was engulfed by the shooting stars, turning into a white light. I won. Desert Poplar smiled proudly. Just as he was about to leave, a black figure suddenly appeared not far away. Desert Poplar was shocked. That black figure was Mingdu, who was engulfed by the shooting stars. Violent thunder. Mingdu raised his staff and chanted a skill. A black cloud began to gather above Desert Poplar's head. Although Violent Thunder's damage was shocking, it had a 1.5-second time to gather the black cloud. Desert Poplar saw this and hurriedly dodged the Violent Thunder's range. But at this moment, a lightning spear pierced through Desert Poplar's chest. Mingdu's damage was so high that even tanks couldn't take it, let alone a brittle archer. With just one spear, Desert Poplar was shot out of the arena. "You lied to me." Before he died, Desert Poplar unwillingly said his last words. Mingdu laughed lowly and said, "I said to let you shoot at me. I didn't say I wouldn't dodge. You're blaming me for being stupid? Don't forget to buy me a drink." As he said this, Mingdu flashed and was also sent out of the arena. F***CK. That be *TCH. Too shameless. The sudden turn of events stunned the audience. At this moment, to place one's pride, and the others finally reacted. It turned out that Mingdu had set a trap for the girl. As a mage, Mingdu's range was far inferior to an archer's. Even if Mingdu knew a movement skill like teleportation, it couldn't make up for the difference in range between the two. If he wanted to attack Desert Poplar, Mingdu had to move forward. However, Desert Poplar's movement speed was so fast that it could leave Bright City behind with a single leg. How much courage would Bright City need to have to convince itself to chase after an archer with maxed out agility? Chapter 805. Those who like to play games all knew that the stronger the skill, the longer the cooldown time. Meteor Chase the Moon was currently one of the strongest archer skills. The cooldown time naturally didn't need to be mentioned. Mingdu moved forward the instant Desert Poplar's skill was released, and when the skill hit him, he teleported away. In the end, Mingdu took advantage of the cooldown time of Desert Poplar's skill to move forward. At this time, Desert Poplar entered Mingdu's shooting range. Of course, just having enough attack range wasn't enough. Archers had evasion skills. Mingdu's spells either had casting prerequisites or magic trajectories. For archers, they were easier to dodge. Thus, Mingdu first used Thunderstorm to trick Desert Poplar into dodging, and then used Thunder Spear to stab it to death. When it came to playing dirty, Mingdu was a natural. But because of this, the favorability of Chuanjin's team plummeted in the hearts of the audience. First, there was the cowardly Yinlao heir who was hung up and beaten by a woman. Then, there was the violent Wang Yu who wanted to kill a woman. Finally, there was this person who didn't even care about his dignity and was even coaxing and deceiving people. What kind of people were they? In the fourth round, Bao San went up to salvage some of his image. After all, Bao San's performance in the previous battles was remarkable, and he still had some popularity. Bao San's opponent was called Papaya Knight. As his name suggested, he was a shield warrior. He might also like to eat papaya, because his chest was very big. To place one's pride was like a child who had just weaned on milk. He was indescribably excited when he saw Papaya Knight. Quick, quick, quick! The next round is mine. To place one's pride excitedly clenched his fist. You'll get your little dick kicked. Wuji poured cold water on him. To die under a peony flower. Even if I become a ghost, I'll still be romantic. I'll die with no regrets. To place one's pride was unmoved. Young people just like to fantasize about women. When he gets older, forget it, let's not talk about it. The word lust is a pictogram anyway. Bao San's state of mind had always been calm. No matter what, he would always be the most reliable warrior in Chuanjin. Facing the Papaya Knight, Bao San stabbed his sword into the ground with no expression on his face. He was relatively calm, as though he was facing a block of wood. Heart as still as water? Bao San has good willpower. Wang Yu couldn't help but sigh. In martial arts, mental fortitude was the introductory course. However, in today's society, people usually couldn't control their desires. Even among martial artists, there were many who didn't have good mental fortitude. This was also one of the reasons why martial arts had declined. However, Bao San's mental fortitude was really surprising. Mingdu rubbed his chin and said, I think he has a psychological problem. Duong. As soon as Mingdu's voice fell, Wuji hit Mingdu's head with a stick. Damn, what are you doing? Mingdu angrily glared at Wuji. Wuji stared at Mingdu and said, You talk too much nonsense. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Everyone knew that Wuji and Bao San were blood-related brothers. It was just that one lived with his father and the other lived with his mother. Even so, the two of them were still very familiar with each other. The meaning behind Wuji's words was that Mingdu had guessed correctly. Linglong Meng looked as though she had discovered a new continent. Damn, what's going on? Can you tell me? Wuji glared at Linglong Meng with killing intent and said angrily, Tell your sister. Just compete honestly. Linglong Meng, who wasn't afraid of anything, was actually frightened by Wuji's gaze. She hurriedly shut her mouth. Although these people from the Quanzhan sect behaved wretchedly, they were still decent people. They knew that this matter involved their privacy, so when they saw Wuji's expression, they naturally retracted their curiosity and turned their attention back to the arena. On the arena, Bao San had already exchanged blows with the Papaya Knight. There had always been a debate in the game as to which was better between a weapon warrior and a shield warrior. Both were warriors. Weapon warriors had high damage output, while shield warriors had high defense, high HP, and many crowd control abilities. Both had their own advantages. At this moment, the two of them on the arena displayed the characteristics of their respective classes to the fullest. Although Bao San had many skills, including a skill like triple slash, the shield in the Papaya Knight's hands wasn't ordinary either. Ordinary skills wouldn't be able to break through the block value. Although the Papaya Knight had a shield to protect her body, this lady's attacks weren't as fast as Bao San's. Right now, she could only defend. It seemed like it was only a matter of time before she was defeated. However, after the two of them clashed for a few rounds, the Papaya Knight's shield suddenly flashed with a trace of light. After that, the Papaya Knight raised his shield and slammed it towards Bao San. Bao San was a weapon warrior that focused on strength. The priority of his skills was naturally higher than the Papaya Knight. Hence, he didn't dodge and similarly slammed back. Bang! The two heavyweight classes collided with each other, creating a deafening sound. What surprised everyone was that the Papaya Knight, who should have been sent flying, didn't move an inch. On the other hand, Bao San was sent flying and even lost his balance as he lay on the ground. It's actually the Shield of Glory. Wuji couldn't help but exclaim when he saw this scene. Shield of Glory was one of the passive, godly skills of shield warriors. After a shield warrior learned this skill, they would gain a glory attribute. The glory attribute would increase as the block value disappeared. When the glory attribute reached a certain amount, this passive skill would be activated. After the Shield of Glory was activated, not only would all attributes increase greatly for 1 minute, but the shield warrior would also be in the absolute dominant state for 30 seconds. When in the absolute dominant state, the player's judgment would also be absolute. However, this skill was a level 60 skill of shield warriors. For the Papaya Knight to be able to learn a level 60 skill at level 45, he was clearly an amazing expert. At the very least, in a team like Xuanzhen that was filled with experts, only to place one's pride could learn a skill of a higher level. This was also because to place one's pride's epic ranked weapon had a special effect that lowered the level of skill learning. Due to the absolute dominant state, the Papaya Knight didn't freeze after the skill was released. After sending Bao San flying, the Papaya Knight didn't pause at all as he moved to Bao San's side, switching his weapon to a spear. The Papaya Knight took a step forward and stabbed his spear into Bao San's body. After that, he used his strength to fling Bao San up. Oomph. Useless man. The Papaya Knight sneered as he looked at Bao San. His hands exerted strength once more, instantly flinging Bao San away. The damage of the spear was much higher than the damage of the shield. With his fling and smashing, Bao San's HP decreased by 1/3. The Papaya Knight followed closely behind. After Bao San landed on the ground, just as he was about to quick recover, he was once again flung up by the Papaya Knight and ruthlessly smashed into the ground. Bao San kept resisting with all his might. However, the absolute dominant state wasn't something that Bao San could resist. The Papaya Knight lifted him up again and smashed him heavily. After this happened 4 times, Before the 30-second duration of the absolute dominant state on the Papaya Knight's body had ended, Bao San was smashed into white light. Chapter 806. Damn, this last is really capable. Seeing Bao San falling to his death, everyone was shocked. Actually, everyone could tell that Bao San's control was definitely above that of the Papaya Knight. The reason why he fell to his death was completely due to an accident. Although Bao San's strength wasn't the strongest in Xuanzhen, he was definitely the most stable one. To place one's pride being tricked to death by someone else was one thing. But for Bao San to be tricked to death by someone else was clearly unbelievable. Bao San, are you all right? Seeing Bao San teleporting back, Wang Yu hurriedly walked over and asked. Seeing this, the others also cast concerned gazes over. If it was in the past, everyone would definitely mock and ridicule him. But now that everyone knew that Bao San was a young man with a mental illness, they naturally wouldn't act so casually. Wang Yu and the others didn't know, but the old people in Xuanzhen knew that Bao San had a criminal record. That time, because of Bao San's madness, Xuanzhen and the others became the game's public enemy and were forcibly killed out of the game. Coupled with Wuji's words, everyone shuddered in fear. No, I'm fine. Seeing that everyone was so concerned about him, Bao San felt a little overwhelmed. Actually, everyone had some misunderstandings. Bao San was a little paranoid, but ordinary matters wouldn't provoke him. If not, how could Bao San work at the Nuclear Energy Research Institute? It's good that you're fine. Chun Xiang and the others secretly wiped their sweat. To place one's pride solemnly said, Third brother, don't be angry. I will help you vent your anger now. Be careful. Bao San nodded. Got it. To place one's pride said and turned into a beam of white light, entering the arena. As the last match, to place one's pride was filled with anticipation for his opponent. After all, the first four were all beauties, and the fifth one definitely wouldn't be too different. Winning or not was one thing. Being able to take the opportunity to touch a girl's hand was already a win. To place one's pride thought. However, to place one's pride soon burst into tears. To place one's pride's opponent was a grandmaster of combat called Punch Your Chest. His looks weren't bad, but his figure wasn't. I really don't know what this girl is thinking. She's a girl, but her body is full of muscles, especially her biceps, which are almost as big as to place one's pride's head. The attire of the female profession was more revealing than that of the male profession. The lumps of flesh on your chest made you look like a King Kong Barbie, which was very intimidating. How could this be? To place one's pride, tears streamed down his cheeks. No matter how vicious his opponent was, he was at least a normal person. How did he become a monster? Punch your chest. If you get punched by this girl, you'll probably lose half of your life. The audience was also amazed when they saw her punch her chest. They had never seen a girl with such a unique taste. Haha, to place one's pride is such an unlucky bastard. Mingdu gloated, then said in confusion, I don't remember seeing a girl like this. Have any of you watched Harmony's team competition? Wuji asked everyone. Everyone shook their heads. When they watched Harmony's previous matches, everyone had misjudged them, which led to the consensus that this team's strength was average. After watching a few individual matches, they would ignore them. Who would have the heart to watch the team competition later on? Wuji said, Isn't that right? Since you haven't watched a team competition, it's normal that you haven't seen a girl like her. Hiding their strength at the beginning was something that competitive teams would do. A team had 12 members and only 10 players would go on stage. Even if it was a team competition, they might not be able to see their full strength, not to mention that they hadn't even watched a team competition. However, this hidden character of Harmony's was quite surprising. Come on, little friend. Let me see what you've got. On the stage, Punch Your Chest made a provocative gesture towards to place one's pride. Being provoked by a girl, any man wouldn't be able to tolerate it. To place one's pride was an expert, so he still had some self-respect. He took 2 steps forward and threw a collapsing fist. Diamond Body. Protect. A fighter was supposed to be an agile class, but when he saw to place one's pride throwing a punch at him, Punch Your Chest and dodge. Instead, he swung his arms to the side of his body and made a square horse stance. Then, with a loud roar, a golden light shone down, and his skin instantly turned bronze. Clang! At the same time, to place one's pride's fist landed on Punch Your Chest, making a metallic sound. F***CK, what a hard chest. To place one's pride couldn't help but be shocked when he threw a punch. The poor kid had never touched a woman before, and this would probably leave a trauma in his heart. Rise, dragon. Rise. Punch Your Chest didn't lose much health after taking to place one's pride's punch. At the same time, he took a step forward, cut into place one's pride's chest, and launched a counterattack. To place one's pride's shin with a fist the size of a sandbag. To place one's pride was directly knocked into the air. Back throw. Immediately after, Punch Your Chest's hands reached out and grabbed to place one's pride's legs. Then, he spun around and carried to place one's pride on her back and slammed him heavily into the wall. This girl's damage was quite high. To place one's pride's health dropped by half, and he was also stunned. Stone Splitter. Seeing that to place one's pride was stunned, Punch Your Chest roared again and sent a flying kick at him. F***CK me. To place one's pride saw this and hurriedly used his life-saving skill, Inner Force Surge, to dispel the stun. At the same time, he flipped forward and used a forward roll to avoid Punch Your Chest kick. Boom! Punch Your Chest kick landed on the wall, and a hole appeared in the wall, causing debris to fly everywhere. To place one's pride was sweating when he saw this scene. This girl was obviously not a proper Grandmaster of Combat, and Grandmasters of Combat had always been inferior to other classes in terms of damage. Even the second advancement monk, who was known for his ferocious punches and kicks, would not have such a strong performance. At this moment, the leader of the Harmony team, Touch of Sunshine, seemed to have noticed to place one's pride's confusion. He smiled and said, Are you stupid? This is a hidden branch of Grandmasters of Combat, the Adamantine Martial Eminence. The Adamantine Martial Eminence was one of the strongest hidden branches of Grandmasters of Combat. Unlike the Grappler, the Adamantine Martial Eminence did not have many grab skills, and almost all of them were damage output skills. Not only was its damage output extremely high, but its defense was also quite strong. It was a very difficult class to deal with. On the other hand, this class also had its own disgusting aspects. It was unknown if the designer had a bad taste, or if this class was exclusive to males, but once the class was changed, their image would automatically transform into a muscular brother, completely ignoring the image set when they entered the game. Punch Your Chest's current monstrous appearance was also thanks to this class. Girls had always loved to look good. For this class, the sacrifice of Punch Your Chest was not small. Of course, it was definitely worth it to have such powerful attributes. Chapter 807. Earth Splitter. After missing his kick, Chest Pummeler turned around and leaped toward to place one's pride. To place one's pride roll backward. Chest Pummeler's knee hit the ground, and the ground cracked. Everyone was shocked again when they saw it. It was common knowledge that the higher the attack power, the more gorgeous the attack effect. However, judging from the attack effect, Chest Pummeler's attack power was not weaker than the warrior's collapsing mountain. Just when the audience thought that to place one's pride was going to be beaten into a dog by King Kong Barbie, to place one's pride suddenly stood up and looked at Chest Pummeler with a smile. Beauty, admit defeat. There's still a long way to go. To place one's pride's words stunned everyone. What was this grandson thinking? Mingdu was about to be beaten into a dog, yet he was still acting cool. Chest Pummeler was also stunned and frowned. What are you thinking? I should be the one saying that. Hee. To place one's pride smiled again. Really? Chest Pummeler stopped talking. Ha! Wuji laughed. Chick has really grown up. He even knows how to act cool and scare people. Wang Yu shook his head. No, Chick isn't scaring people. Oh, what do you mean? Wuji was surprised. Wang Yu said, Chick found the opponent's fatal weakness. Weakness? Wuji was puzzled. Does King Kong Barbie have a weakness when facing the same class? Yes. Wang Yu said, the fatal weakness of Chest Pummeler is that it doesn't have combo skills. The specialty of the Grandmaster of Combat was to use normal attacks and skills to carry out an unlimited combo. However, Chess Pummeler's attack effect was too strong. Although each move was powerful, most of the attack effect was to knock back or knock down. Moreover, the movement speed of Punch Your Chest was not fast, and the cooldown time of the skill was slightly longer than that of a normal Grandmaster of Combat. Therefore, the combo effect of the skill was far inferior to other professions, let alone a Grandmaster of Combat, who mainly used combo attacks. As long as he could trick the first skill of Chest Bash would lose its suppressive advantage because the skill would miss. After all, hidden subclasses were like fist techniques that had already fallen into decline. Although they had their own merits, they were eliminated by conventional classes due to their fatal flaws. For example, the catapult could not be used in PV, which was its fatal weakness. Similarly, the inability to combo attacks was also the fatal weakness of the catapult. There were already warriors and paladins with high attack power, so it was obvious that an unarmed Grandmaster of Combat would be at a disadvantage if they chose this path. I see. Wuji rubbed his chin and said, "No wonder this monster was used as a surprise attack. Looks like the people from Harmony already knew your weakness." At this stage of the competition, everyone was an expert. Although they did not have the chance to fight Chess Bash personally, and they might not have the foresight of Wang Yu, they would still be exposed if they saw too much of it. This was also why To Place One's Pride wanted Chess Bash to surrender. To place one's pride, once this secret was revealed to the public, Chess Bash would basically be useless in the PvP circle. What do you think? Surrender? To Place One's Pride asked again. Chess Bash coldly snorted and chose to surrender. He turned into a white light and left the arena. Chess Bash had strong limbs, but his brain was not simple. To Place One's Pride's words were so firm, he must have discovered something. To Place One's Pride was right. There was still a long way to go, and there was no need to ruin his future. F***, what's going on? Seeing Chess Bash admit defeat, the audience was dumbfounded. Could it be that there's some kind of dirty deal going on here? Someone began to guess. That goes without saying. Did you guys forget about the third round? When the others heard this, they immediately remembered that the third round between Mingdu and Desert Poplar was clearly marked on the arena. F***, your cheating match. Thinking of this, the audience was completely enraged. Everyone had placed their bets on the forums. Wasn't this F***king cheating match clearly a scam? For a moment, the arena was in chaos. The audience took out the trash from their bags and threw it at the players from the two teams. As they threw it, they shouted slogans like "Put an end to cheating matches." Fortunately, both camps were in the safe zone, or else both sides would have been smashed to death. In the end, the system appeared and forcefully kicked the troublemakers out of the arena. It also warned all players, no one can cheat in front of the system, no matter how the system tried to explain it. The two teams had already been labeled as cheating the competition. That Sunshine even sent a message to Wuji, "It's all your fault. You've offended someone." Offended someone? Wuji laughed. "You'll get used to it. There's no such thing as not losing money when betting on dogs." That Sunshine. The first round was won by Chuanjin 3-2. The small disturbance didn't take up much time. After the troublemakers were kicked out and silenced, the match continued. The second round was a wheel race. The system randomly selected the team members. After a round of selection, the names of the two teams appeared on the big screen. Team Harmony, Withered Vine Old Tree, Overflowing Color, Momentary Beauty, That Sunshine Cry Lily, Motley Crowd, Bombing Fish, Mingjian Daoxue, To Place One's Pride, Wuji, Qingxue. The map was still chosen by Harmony. As the first player to leave the arena, Withered Vine Old Tree also chose a random map. After choosing the map, the chosen players from both teams entered the arena. Other than Withered Vine Old Tree and Bombing Fish, the other 8 players waited outside the arena. The scene was created. Ancient Battleground. Ancient Battleground was also known as the battlefield of gods and demons. It was the map of the Great War of Gods and Demons, one of the ultimate level 200 maps. No players had seen this map before, so they didn't have much of an advantage. The ancient battlefield was a desolate plain. The ground was stained with blood, and bones were piled up. Although there were many broken chariots, catapults, and other large war tools, the field of vision was relatively wide, and there were not many obstacles. Withered Vine Old Tree was the only male player in Harmony. He was a mage. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes. He wore a dark blue mage robe, and seemed to be an ice mage with strong PK abilities. After entering the battlefield, before Biming Fish could enter stealth, Withered Vine Old Tree smiled at her and then chose to surrender. Seeing Withered Vine Old Tree do this, the audience was in an uproar again. Sure enough, there must be some unspeakable deal between these two teams. Seeing Withered Vine Old Tree surrender, the Chuanjian people were a little surprised. At the same time, Chun Xiang rubbed his chin and muttered, "This Withered Vine Old Tree is up to something." Everyone in Chuanjian nodded in agreement. Why did he surrender by beating his chest? It was because to place one's pride had seen through his weakness. It was hard not to suspect Withered Vine Old Tree's motive for leaving. After Withered Vine Old Tree left the battlefield, overflowing color was immediately sent into the battlefield. Chapter 808. Flowing Light's class was an archer. Although she was a female player, this girl had a shiny golden dagger on her waist and a dark golden heavy crossbow in her hand. The other equipment on her body was also quite gorgeous, not inferior to famous sword Dao Shui. Obviously, she was not someone to be trifled with. In all fairness, the advantage of an assassin against an archer was quite obvious. After all, an archer's physique was the weakest. Even if they had an evasion skill, dealing with a sneak attack in a passive state required extremely high reaction speed. Therefore, the majority of battles between archers and assassins ended with the archer being stabbed to death. No one knew Flowing Light's strength, but North Sea Yoyu was definitely a good player. Her control was quite sharp, especially with North Sea Yoyu's Earth Escape skill. Even Yang Na could not guarantee that she could safely survive North Sea Yoyu's sneak attack. Her strength could be imagined. Therefore, everyone was still very confident in North Sea Yoyu. Taking advantage of the 10 seconds when Dry Vine Old Tree was teleported out of the arena, North Sea Yoyu quickly ran to the spawn point of the Harmony team after going into stealth. As soon as Flowing Light was teleported to the battlefield, North Sea Yoyu immediately appeared behind him and stabbed Flowing Light with a backstab. However, teams that could fight their way into the top 8 were not easy to deal with. Not to mention that everyone knew this kind of dirty tricks. Even if Flowing Light was a pure girl, she would watch the videos of each team before the match to understand the opponent. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you can win 100 battles. The Harmony battle team naturally understood the Chuanjian sex style. Thus, Flowing Light and vibrant colors had long since made preparations. Crash! Just when the audience thought that Flowing Light was going to be stabbed to death by North Sea Yoyu, they only heard the sound of glass shattering. A pale blue light flashed on Flowing Light's body, and the HP bar on his head did not drop by a single bit. Shield of Protection, one of the rare skills of a priest. It allowed the target on one side to block one attack for 30 seconds. Flowing Light was actually buffed with this skill before he went on stage. Seeing this scene, everyone suddenly realized something. Wang Yu said with some understanding, "Dry Vine Old Tree automatically forfeited. I'm afraid it wasn't to let Flowing Light take advantage of North Sea Yoyu, right?" "Yes and no," Spring Soaring said. "Speak human language." Wang Yu glared at him. He didn't know when it started, but Chuanjian's group of people had started to have this bad habit of leaving half of their sentences unsaid. Once someone asked them a question, they would have a perverted sense of satisfaction. Hee. Chun Xiang smiled. Letting overflowing color deal with Biming Fish is definitely part of the opponent's plan, but don't you think it's a bit of a waste? This. Wang Yu touched his chin and said, "In a little, no matter how you looked at it." Old Withered Vine was still worth 2 points. If he forfeited just to resist the skill, it would be a huge sacrifice. Moreover, Harmony only had one cleric, and they were currently waiting outside the arena for a substitute. If the cleric cast the skill before overflowing colors went on stage, it would still have the same effect. Old withered vine sacrifice was clearly meaningless. Therefore, the withered vine tree might have retreated because of this, but it was definitely not the main reason. Protection shield blocked Biming Yu's first attack, buying time for overflowing color. Overflowing color dodged forward. He didn't even look at Biming Yu and started running without looking back. Biming Fish was stunned on the spot. She had no idea what overflowing color was trying to do, so she went into stealth and followed him again. Archers were the fastest class in Rebirth. Once they started running, no other class could catch up. Biming Fish was a violent assassin with half agility and half strength. Of course, she could only eat the dust from behind. In the blink of an eye, overflowing color had left Biming Fish more than 10 meters behind. Then, overflowing color ran under an abandoned arrow tower and climbed up the ladder. When Biming Fish reached the bottom of the arrow tower, overflowing color had already climbed to the top and fired an arrow rain at the bottom of the arrow tower. Arrow rain was an AoE coverage skill. More than 20 arrows instantly covered the area below the arrow tower. Biming Fish couldn't dodge in time and was hit by 2 arrows in her head. She then hurriedly ran to the side. Biming Fish's stealth effect had not been lifted, and overflowing color didn't have the ability to shoot blindly, so he didn't shoot again. Instead, he aimed the crossbow at the ladder of the arrow tower. Oh no, old Fish is going to lose. Wang Yu saw Biming Fish being shot and couldn't help but shout. Logically speaking, in terms of real ability, overflowing color skills were almost a level lower than Biming Fish's. However, the competition had a time limit, so in the arena, it wasn't just about life and death, but also tactics and damage. Overflowing color now had the upper hand. As long as he stared at the ladder, Biming Fish wouldn't have a chance to climb up. It could be said that victory was in his grasp. As for Biming Fish, he would be exposed as soon as he climbed up the ladder. The arrow tower was a full 15 meters tall, and according to the characteristics of the scene, the archers seemed to have a buff on it. Biming Fish would definitely die if he rashly climbed up the ladder. Biming Fish wasn't weak, but her clever ideas were obviously not as good as the others in Chuanjin. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been tricked by her little brother. If it was Wuji who had more clever ideas, he would probably be able to fight it out. With Biming Fish, there was no chance. Sure enough, after realizing overflowing color's goal, Biming Fish's face was full of anger, but it was to no avail. After angrily spinning around a few times, she clicked surrender. Old Fish, you need to rely on your brain to fight. Biming Fish was sent out of the arena, and Mingdu said with some schadenfreude, "Nonsense, do you have a way up?" Biming Fish said unhappily. "This?" Mingdu thought for a bit and said to Wang Yu, "Old cow, I'll give you a chance to show off. How do you deal with the situation? Jump up and kill her." Wang Yu made a gesture of slitting his neck. Biming Fish, it was a mere 15 meters, and Wang Yu had at least 4 ways to fly up. There was no point in asking him. "Get lost. Spring Dog, change to yours." Mingdu pointed his middle finger at Wang Yu and asked Spring Xiang. Spring Xiang smiled and said, "Old Fish, don't you have a gun?" "Yeah." Biming Fish looked at the secondary weapon hanging on her neck. "So you can completely take the damage and climb up a few meters to shoot at her. Your HP is higher than hers, and you're both agility classes, so your bonuses to long-range weapons are about the same." Spring Xiang said, "Archers have crossbow proficiency." Biming Fish retorted. Spring Xiang laughed. "Don't you also have the secondary weapons damage? She doesn't have much of an advantage over you, so she'll definitely be the first to give up." Chapter 809. After Biming Yu surrendered, Mingjian Daoxue entered the battlefield. If Chuanjin could think of ambushing others, they naturally could also think of the possibility of others ambushing them. The moment he entered the battlefield, Mingjian Daoxue immediately used Vanish. Just as Mingjian Daoxue had expected, the instant Mingjian Daoxue entered the battlefield, Overflowing light activated the archer's longest-range skill, snipe, from the arrow tower. After level 45, an archer snipe had a range of up to 40 meters. The arrow tower had a 50% increase in range, speed, and vision, directly increasing Flowing Colors' attack range to 60 meters. An archer's Hawkeye's vision range was only 50 meters. Flowing Color was terrifying. However, at the end of the day, Overflowing Light did not have Soaring Spring's incredible calculation ability. Although Overflowing Light's bullet speed had increased, Mingjian Daoshua's arrow had only reached Mingjian Daoshua after he activated Vanish. Vanish's 3 seconds of invincibility allowed Mingjian Daoshua to safely leave Flowing Colors' field of vision. Mingjian Daoshua was an authentic Chuanjian hooligan, a combination of wretchedness and despicableness. Mingjian Daoshua followed the direction where the arrow had come from and walked forward for a distance. Mingjian Daoshua also saw the colorful lights on the arrow tower. Who was Mingjian Daoshua? A merchant. Chuanjian's most meticulous and best at doing business was Mingjian Daoshua. After seeing Flowing Colors' position, Mingjian Daoshua immediately stopped. Mingjian Daoshua stopped and rubbed his chin, comparing the difference between him and Flowing Color. He calculated his chances of winning, then kicked the dirt on the ground and sat down cross-legged. Wasting time, this was Mingjian Daoshua's strategy. As long as neither side received any damage within 40 minutes, the system would automatically deem it a draw, and they would leave the battlefield with 0 points. Mingjian Daoshua wasn't clear about Flowing Colors' position in Harmony, but he was very clear about his position in Chuanjian. Even though Mingjian Daoshua could always participate in a match, in Chuanjian, Mingjian Daoshua's class was actually a logistics team leader. If they really fought, Exquisite Dream could probably crush him. For Mingjian Daoshua to fight against Overflowing Colors with his status was like a chef fighting against a member of the battle order. No matter what, Mingjian Daoshua would win. Even if Overflowing Colors was still a chef, with the current situation, Mingjian Daoshua would not lose anything. As expected of a businessman, in times of need, he actually treats himself like a commodity and barters with others of equal value. How despicable. Damn you. Seeing Ming Qian Daoshua sit down, everyone instantly guessed what this grandson meant. The audience could not help but curse out again. It was a waste of time again. It was fine if it happened once, but it happened every time. This was a little too much. No matter how good-tempered the audience was, they would still get angry. F***CK, shameless. When Ray of Sunshine saw that Ming Jian Daoshua wanted to fight to the death with Overflowing Colors, he immediately became furious. Ming Jian Daoshua didn't know what position Overflowing Colors held in Team Harmony, but the players in Team Harmony obviously knew. Flowing Light was Harmony's main damage dealer, and he was quite powerful. Moreover, now that he occupied the Arrow Tower, Flowing Light was practically invincible. Looking at the current situation, let alone defeating Ming Jian Daoshua, it wasn't impossible for Flowing Light to single-handedly challenge an entire team from Quanjin sect. Ming Jian Daoshua was actually trying to fight Overflowing Colors. This made everyone in Team Harmony speechless. How could there be such a shameless person in the world? F***CK. Do you dare to fight fair and square? Ray of Sunshine shouted angrily. TCH. Hearing Ray of Sunshine's words, everyone's mouths twitched. Although Ming Jian Daoshua was shameless, was Overflowing Colors really that clean? If they fought fair and square, Overflowing Colors would probably be dead already. Time passed second by second. Although the audience was on the verge of collapse, there was nothing they could do. This was because the players who had watched Chuanjian's matches knew their style. So what if they sat for 40 minutes? Last time, there was someone who slept for 40 minutes. He's trash. 10 minutes later, Overflowing Colors on the Arrow Tower started to feel that something was wrong. If it was anyone else, they would have surrendered if they couldn't win. But now, this guy wasn't even fighting or retreating. What was he trying to do? 20 minutes later, Overflowing Colors was on the verge of collapse. Compared to men, women were already very patient. Overflowing Colors clearly didn't expect Ming Jian Daoshua to be so patient. 30 minutes later, Overflowing Colors finally realized Mingjian Daoxue's true intentions and started to panic. Mingjian Daoxue was actually very bored. He couldn't chat in the competition, and being in a daze for 30 minutes was quite boring. Of course, if he wanted to produce results, he had to be able to endure the loneliness. Mingjian Daoxue could only conclude his actions as the loneliness of an expert. However, at that moment, overflowing light disappeared from the archer tower. Seeing this, Mingjian Daoxue was greatly shocked and hurriedly looked around. Soon, overflowing light appeared beneath the archer tower with an anxious look on his face. This girl's reaction is really slow. Is she only panicking now? Mingjian Daoxue thought to himself with a faint smile. Overflowing Colors, who had descended the arrow tower, didn't know that Mingjian Daoxue was hiding in the distance. Instead, he frantically circled around the arrow tower, shooting randomly in an attempt to force Mingjian Daoxue out. Seeing this, Mingjian Daoxue immediately grew excited. The purpose of an assassin was to assassinate. Professional assassins would always deliver a fatal blow when their opponents were at their most unstable or at their most relaxed. At this moment, Overflowing Colors knew that he was about to be traded for a life. Clearly, he had already lost his balance. Wasn't this the best time to attack? If he didn't attack, he could only trade a life for a life. If he attacked, he might get 2 points. After a match, 2 points were extremely useful. Although it was safer to trade a life for a life, the opportunistic mentality in minigame Du Shui's bones had caused him to become excited. In fact, even he himself did not know that his mentality had become a little unbalanced. After hesitating again and again, Mingjian Daoxue finally lost his rationality. He stood up, raised his dagger, and rushed toward Overflowing Colors. 1 step, 2 steps. Mingjian Daoxue was getting closer and closer to Overflowing Colors. Just as Mingjian Daoxue was about to reach behind Overflowing Colors, he suddenly heard a click. Damn, I've been tricked. Of course, Mingjian Daoxue could tell that this was the sound of a trap being activated. He instantly realized that he had fallen into someone's trap. Immediately after, Mingjian Daoxue was frozen in place. At the same time, Overflowing Colors narrowed his eyes and turned around. He had already finished charging his crossbow, and he aimed it at Mingjian Daoxue. Die! Overflowing Colors smiled and pulled the trigger, activating the level 45 archer skill. Meteor chases the moon. Chapter 8:10. F***CK. It's a trap. Seeing this scene, Quan Zhen's members could not help but be stunned. Trap was a common skill for archers. It was a small skill for archers before they advanced to level 10. The effect of the skill was very limited, and it could only freeze the target for 3 seconds. However, for Flowing Color, 3 seconds was more than enough to deal with an assassin ambushing him from behind. This girl is not bad. She actually has such a trick up her sleeve. Assassin's HP was not much higher than archers, and Mingjian Daoxue did not have the ability to block attacks at close range like Wang Yu. The white light from Meteor chases the moon instantly engulfed Mingjian Daoxue. After killing Mingjian Daoxue, Flowing Color climbed back to the arrow tower, raised his crossbow, and aimed at the ragtag team's spawn point. For the sake of fairness, the players in the outer arena could not see what was happening inside the arena. When they saw Baiming Youyu and Mingjian Daoxue, the 2 assassins, die one after another, the people from Quan Zhen's sect were dumbfounded. It was fine if the 2 assassins were killed by shield bearers. After all, shield bearers counter assassins. However, the 2 assassins were killed by an archer who countered their own class. What the hell was going on? Chick, don't go yet. I'll give you an invincibility. Wuji raised his staff and was about to cast a holy shield on to place one's pride, but to place one's pride directly entered the arena. What did you say? To place one's pride turned his head in a daze before turning into a white light. Pretend I didn't say anything. Wuji sighed as he looked in the direction to place one's pride disappeared. To place one's pride did not have an invincibility skill, and he had always been careless. He did not realize the danger he was in. As soon as he appeared in the arena, he was caught off guard by Flowing Color's snipe. The battlefield of gods was a flat terrain, and there were not many obstructions. At this moment, Flowing Color stood on high ground and had a panoramic view of the entire map. In this situation, to place one's pride was a moving target. He did not even see Flowing Color before he was killed on the spot. 1v3. Seeing that to place one's pride had also been killed, the audience on the stage became even more excited. Apart from the two resurrected teams, the rest of the participating teams were the top 8 teams in Division 7. The strength of their players was also remarkable. Flowing Light Overflowing Color had killed 3 people in a row, and he was unharmed. Even if he relied on crafty schemes, it was still shocking. The reaction of the Harmony team wasn't as strong as the audience, but the joy on the girls' faces was obvious. Akai is so awesome. Thumping your chest, he couldn't help but exclaim. At this moment, Ku Tung Old Tree, who had given up in the first round, said faintly, "This is nothing." You could be surprised when Akai fights 1 against 5 later. 1 against 5? Can I? Hearing the old tree's words, it thumped its chest and asked in surprise. Of course. At this moment, Touch of Sunshine continued. Their players who can fight have basically been eliminated. That cleric behind them is just a free point. Clerics were not offensive classes. They only had an annoying self-destruct skill that could only be used within a certain distance. Not to mention the fact that Flowing Light was standing on the tower. With Wuji's attack range, it was impossible for him to reach her. Even if he could reach her, Flowing Light Overflowing Color had an evasion skill. It was normal for him to be unable to dodge Beiming Yoyu's sneak attack. If he couldn't even dodge the cleric's self-destruct skill, then he could forget about competing in the professional competition. Don't they still have an archer? Yang Na, who was pointing at the battlefield outside, asked. An archer? Touch of Sunshine laughed and said, Akai has the advantage of an arrow tower. Mph. At this point, Touch of Sunshine sneered and looked at the Chuanjin team. His provocation was obvious. She's crazy. That's right. I really want to beat her up. Seeing the provocation in Touch of Sunshine's eyes, Wang Yu and Chun Xiang did not have any reaction. However, Mu Zixian and Exquisite Dream were a little unhappy. This was within reason. Losing 3 matches in a row would cause anyone to panic, especially when the pro players at the end of the match didn't have a high win rate either. As the leader of the ragtag team, she didn't want her team to stop here. As for Ling Longming, she simply couldn't stand seeing other women strut around on stage. Wang Yu laughed and said, Don't panic. The best is yet to come. But that Flowing Light hasn't lost a single bit of health. It won't be easy for us to fight next. Mu Zixian said worriedly. The advantage of Harmony's team was obvious. No matter how low Mu Zixian's skill level was, she had at least been a customer service employee. Naturally, she could see it. Wang Yu patted Mu Zixian's shoulder and said, It's okay. You have to believe in them. As they spoke, Wuji had already entered the arena. The arrow tower's flowing light didn't change. He fired a snipe at Wuji. However, Wuji raised his staff and a white light sprinkled down. A holy shield blocked the snipe. Huh, what a powerful guy. Seeing Wuji's move, Flowing Light's face revealed a trace of surprise. The players of Harmony outside the arena and the experts in the lounge could not help but take another look at Wuji. Snipe's trajectory was very fast. Most people would not even have time to react before they were hit, let alone cloth-armored classes. Even archers who had the highest agility would not necessarily be able to dodge the attack. Hence, the best strategy was to cast invulnerability before entering the arena. However, Wuji was able to use the skill the instant Flowing Light's snipe hit him. This skill was not inferior to a pro-level player. Of course, even so, no one felt that Wuji had a high chance of winning. After all, he was a cleric. So what if he was invulnerable? Holy Shield had a time limit. Clerics were not assassins, who could go into stealth and cause archers to lose their targets. Casting Holy Shield in the arena was only a few seconds longer than casting it before entering the arena. After successfully casting the Radiant Saint Shield, Wuji charged towards the arrow that was shooting towards him. 15, 14, 10. Holy Shield's invulnerability time was 15 seconds. Seeing Wuji cast Holy Shield on himself, Flowing Light continued to shoot as he counted down. When the countdown reached the last second, Wuji was less than 10 meters away from the arrow tower. Flowing Light Snipe had also finished its cooldown. Now, seeing Wuji's Holy Shield disappear, Flowing Light narrowed his eyes and was about to cast Snipe again. However, at this moment, Wuji suddenly raised his head and smiled at Flowing Light. His staff emitted a dazzling white light. In an instant, the big screen in front of the audience was filled with this dazzling white light. Everyone was blinded by the light and closed their eyes at the same time. When the white light dissipated, a gray eye symbol appeared above Flowing Light's head. At the same time, a debuff appeared on Flowing Light's body, blinding him for 5 seconds. Chapter 8:11. It was actually Light of Glory. Seeing overflowing light blinded on the screen, the audience spat out a mouthful of blood. As a priest class, Holy Priests did not lack control skills. However, priest control skills were mostly minor control skills, such as sleep, silence, blind, and so on. Light of Glory was a CC skill for clerics. However, 9 out of 10 clerics would never learn this crappy skill, because Light of Glory was a very useless skill. Priest control skills were mostly directional, such as Holy Flame. Once it locked onto a target, the target could not escape. However, Light of Glory not only did no skill damage, but it was also very easy to avoid. Turning one's head, closing one's eyes, wearing sunglasses, and other accessories could all make this skill ineffective. What was even more disgusting was that this skill attacked indiscriminately. Not only was it effective on the opponent, but it was also effective on oneself and one's teammates. Learning this kind of skill that harmed others without benefiting oneself was purely a waste of skill points and money. Logically speaking, Overflowing Light was also an expert who had experienced hundreds of battles. It was very easy for him to avoid Light of Glory. However, how despicable was Wuji? He deliberately rushed forward in Overflowing Light's field of vision and suddenly used this skill when Overflowing Light was staring at him. How could Overflowing Light not be hit? Taking advantage of Overflowing Light's 5 seconds of blindness, Wuji used flight to fly toward the arrow tower. A blind archer was the same as a mute mage, basically useless. In order to prevent being ambushed, Overflowing Light closed his eyes and shot randomly. Wuji dodged while approaching Overflowing Light on the arrow tower. Just when Wuji was less than 5 meters away from Overflowing Light, Overflowing Light's blinding effect also disappeared. Seeing Wuji floating in the air close at hand, Overflowing Light was startled. The space on the arrow tower was less than a meter square. At this distance, if Wuji used self-destruct, Overflowing Light would not be able to dodge it. Thus, Flowing Light Overflowing Colors raised his crossbow and shot at Wuji. A red light flashed on Wuji's body, and he became invincible again. The arrows shot by Flowing Light were all bounced off one after another. Priests were like this, with all kinds of support spells. It was a disgusting comparison, and it was hard to kill someone even if they couldn't kill them. Seeing that Wuji was getting closer and closer with Invincible, Flowing Light made up his mind, gritted his teeth, and jumped off the arrow tower. Archers were a kiting class, so it was more in line with their profession to attack while running. After jumping off the arrow tower, Flowing Light immediately gained the upper hand. The archer's attack range was far, and he ran fast. Wuji couldn't catch up or hit him. After using up his 2 invincibility skills, he no longer had the ability to save his life, so he could only endure the colorful attacks and chase forward. Overflowing Light retreated as he ran, completely trapping Wuji. Even though Wuji had a lot of HP, he was still shot like a hedgehog and left the stage with a grievance. 1 versus 4. The arena was once again in an uproar. This mech had already broken the previous record. Could it be that this girl was really going to fight 1 against 5? Hee 1 versus 5 your sister, a bunch of idiots. Wuji, who had been trounced, saw the excited players in the audience and sneered. As soon as Wuji's voice fell, everyone saw a white light appear beside overflowing light. Yang Na appeared in the arena. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but be surprised. Only then did they notice that Wuji had actually forced overflowing light to the spawn point. Overflowing light was also stunned when he saw Yang Na suddenly appear. He raised his hand and launched an attack at Yang Na. What kind of skills did Yang Na have? Even overflowing light's sneak attack might not be able to hit this girl, let alone now that she was attacking in such a panic. Yang Na's figure turned and dodged overflowing light's attack. At the same time, she retaliated and gave overflowing light a blow. Unfortunately, Yang Na's evasion was very high. However, because it was in manual mode, her hit rate was very low. Overflowing light subconsciously tilted his head, and Yang Na's arrow brushed past him. At this moment, the two were less than 3 meters away from each other. They had shot 2 arrows at each other, but neither hit. This once again gave the audience a new understanding of these two girls' strength. After all, the archer's shooting system was supported by the system. At this distance, everyone did not think that it was possible for an archer to miss. Dodging a shot within 3 meters was extremely frightening. The safe distance for an archer was 10 meters away. This was because archers needed to draw the bow when shooting. When completing this action, it was very easy for an archer to close in on them. Therefore, a distance of 3 meters was extremely inconvenient for an archer, especially when the opponent was also an archer. It was not easy to increase the distance between the two, so this distance was not suitable for long-range attacks. Thinking up to this point, overflowing light looked up and down at Yang Na. He put away his crossbow, pulled out the golden dagger from his waist, and dodged forward, rushing toward Yang Na. Awesome! She's actually a melee archer. Seeing overflowing light pull out a dagger and rush forward, everyone could not help but exclaim. Although archers could also use daggers, in the minds of ordinary players, this class had always been a typical long-range class. Daggers were only used for emergencies. An archer who fought with others with their daggers was simply abnormal. Ignorant. The shouts of the audience made Sunshine even more disdainful. The members of the Harmony team were all too familiar with Overflowing Light's ability. Although this girl was an archer, in reality, this girl was very good at using daggers. In the game, she had long since obtained an exquisite dagger as a melee weapon. Therefore, compared to a crossbow, Overflowing Light was more inclined towards melee combat. Not to mention that the opponent was an archer. Even if the opponent was a warrior, Overflowing Light would not necessarily lose. But then, Sunshine suddenly froze. Because when she saw Overflowing Light pull out a dagger and rush over, not only did Yang Na not turn around and run, but she also pulled out a black dagger. Unlike Overflowing Light's exquisite dagger, Yang Na's dagger did not have the slightest glow. One look and you could tell that it was a white dagger. Sunshine could not help but laugh. Using a white dagger to fight Akai with an exquisite dagger? Can't this chick just directly surrender? At the same time that Sunshine's voice fell, Overflowing Light had already rushed in front of Yang Na. The dagger in her hand swung, and a golden light swept towards Yang Na's neck. Yang Na's expression was calm. Seeing the dagger coming at her, she calmly tilted her head back and at the same time took a step forward. From under Overflowing Light's arm, Yang Na moved to Overflowing Light's back. At the same time, Yang Na's right hand grabbed the dagger and wrapped it around Overflowing Light's arm. Then, with a sudden force, Overflowing Light's right arm that was grabbing the dagger was stuck behind her back, and the dagger in Yang Na's hand smoothly stabbed into Overflowing Light's neck. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, the eyes of the members of the Harmony team directly flew out. Chapter 8:12. This time, it was Chuanjin's turn to sneer. Yang Na was an outstanding child of a big family. As the saying goes, a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. What was the difference between Flowing Light and an ordinary person in front of Yang Na? Playing close combat with Yang Na, Flowing Light did not find the right opponent. In the end, an archer was not a dagger proficient profession. Yang Na's dagger was also a white-gray dagger. Not only did Flowing Light not die, but he was also alive and kicking. Flowing Light flipped his right hand, dodging Yang Na's entanglement. He then backhandedly stabbed Yang Na. Yang Na stretched her hand to the back of Flowing Light's head, grabbed the hair on the back of Flowing Light's head, and pulled it down. Flowing Light was directly dragged to the ground. Yang Na lifted her leg and stepped on Flowing Light's chest. She switched the weapon in her hand to a crossbow and shot Flowing Light into a white light. How could this be? Harmony's players were completely dumbfounded. Brilliant melee combat techniques had always been her signature style. Who would have thought that she would lose this time? It would have been fine if she'd lost to a melee class, but she'd lost to an archer of the same class. This was simply inconceivable. This archer is not simple. She may be our most difficult player to deal with. That Sunshine looked at Yang Na on the screen and said in surprise. Old Tree nodded and said, "The archer is indeed very powerful, but she is not the most difficult to deal with." Really? This archer is obviously the strongest among them. Isn't he the most terrifying? That ray of sunshine said doubtfully. Old Tree smiled and said, "Competition is not one-on-one. It's not just about the operation. No matter how strong an individual's skills are, it can't turn the situation around. Only tactics can affect the whole game." You mean? Yes, that priest is the most difficult to deal with. At the same time, Lucifer also twisted his face and said to the player named Peng Lang behind him. Peng Lang said disdainfully, "What's so good about being hung up and beaten?" Lucifer said, "Didn't you see why Flowing Light lost? Her skills are not as good as others. It's a disgrace." Peng Lang said, "That's just one aspect. If she doesn't appear in that position, it's hard to say who will win. After all, there's the advantage of the arrow tower." Lucifer sneered. You're saying that Flowing Light appeared in that position because he was deliberately forced there?" Peng Lang asked. "That's right." Lucifer nodded. "That is indeed quite difficult to deal with." Hearing Lucifer's words, Penang Lang somewhat understood. Just now, when Wuji entered the arena, he did not attack Flowing Light and overflowing color. Instead, he blindly pounced forward. Everyone thought that Wuji was doing this to self-destruct and perish together with Flowing Light and overflowing color. But according to what Lucifer said, this kid clearly had ulterior motives. After all, with the gap between the priest and the archer profession, no matter what, he would have long been hung up and beaten. Self-destruct was an act that could be done once, but if it happened a second time, the others would certainly guard against it. In any case, it was still a top 8 team. They shouldn't be so stupid. If what Lucifer said was true, that it was deliberate to force Flowing Light near the spawn point, then it would not be an exaggeration to say that Wuji was the most difficult person to deal with. A priest forced an archer near the spawn point. Not to mention the tactics, this control of both sides could only be described as terrifying. Lucifer was an expert. No matter how much he liked to show off, his judgment of the opponent was still very accurate. Therefore, Penang Lang did not doubt Lucifer's statement. Penang Lang had always thought highly of himself. Thinking of this, he still could not help but feel a trace of fear towards Wuji. Of course, although there were many players watching the battle, there were not many people who had the same vision as Lucifer and Old Tree Vine. Most people were more willing to watch the battle of Yang Na, who ended the legend of Flowing Light and overflowing color. The third player from Harmony team was called Moment of Youth. She was also a pretty girl. There were no ugly girls in the game. After all, one could change their appearance. If they were still ugly after plastic surgery, what would they look like in real life? Moment of Youth was a priest. Compared to archers, priests had a short attack range and low physical defense. Their casting speed and movement speed were far slower than archers. Therefore, archers were very good at restraining mages. As an archer, Yang Na had almost no shortcomings except for a low hit rate. She could even defeat Harmony team's strongest player, Flowing Light, in close combat. Naturally, there was no suspense in this battle. Yang Na did not occupy the arrow tower to launch a sneak attack like flowing light. Instead, she stood outside a Moment of Youth's range and kite. After a few rounds, Moment of Youth was shot out of the arena by Yang Na. After killing Moment of Youth, Yang Na walked to Harmony Team's spawn point and bent down to place a level 35 frost trap. As soon as the trap was placed, Harmony Team's fourth player, Moonlight, appeared on the arena. Moonlight was the same as Sunshine. They were both assassins. As soon as he entered the battlefield, Moonlight entered stealth. However, Moonlight had only taken one step forward when Yang Na's frost trap successfully activated. Moonlight's stealth was immediately stopped in place. At this time, Yang Na also saw Moonlight's appearance. That wisp of moonlight and that wisp of sunshine looked 70 to 80% similar. They should be sisters, but that wisp of moonlight was shorter and had a much calmer temperament. Moonlight's equipment was also very good. The shoes on her feet were very eye-catching. They were actually a pair of high heels. This was a combat game. The appearance of high heels was somewhat out of place. However, women were creatures that did not follow logic. Yang Na's eyes lit up when she saw the shoes on Moonlight's feet. She asked Moonlight from afar, "Where did you buy these shoes?" "Quest." Moonlight replied indifferently, but it could not hide the pride on her face. "Are you selling them?" Yang Na asked again. Moonlight sneered and turned her face away. She used her actions to answer Yang Na's question. Oomph. Seeing that Moonlight was not selling, Yang Na was very unhappy. She raised her crossbow and was about to attack Moonlight. However, at this time, Moonlight's shoes suddenly burst into flames. The frost trap under her feet was dispelled, and she regained her freedom. After regaining her freedom, Moonlight immediately activated Swift Step and rushed toward Yang Na in an S-shaped movement. Yang Na was less than 10 meters away from Moonlight. Under Swift Step's acceleration, Moonlight arrived in the blink of an eye. She raised her dagger and stabbed at Yang Na. Moonlight was not a flowing light. This girl was an assassin with many skills. She was a true dagger master. As an archer, Yang Na naturally did not dare to take the attack head-on. She quickly dodged to the side and avoided the dagger. Moonlight missed her attack. She twisted her waist and sent a roundhouse kick at Yang Na's head. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.